Hello, and welcome back to Maybe We'll Talk, a podcast on the online internet where I talk to people with the use of the internet, voice over IP. Sometimes I say a podcast where I talk to my friends on the phone, and sometimes it is that. Sometimes a phone is involved. What is a phone these days? Hasn't the idea of a phone really been kind of redefined? Do we all need to look inwards at ourselves and decide what a phone call means to us? It's certainly something that has been changed or perhaps even lost, if I were a dramatic person describing the current state and climate of today's culture. Wow, that would be a silly thing for me to do. I'm not that type of guy. I don't talk about cultural climate. I mean, maybe I do a little bit. You know what? Today, we're not talking about anything that has anything to do with the real world at all. Although, man, I guess if you really think about it, everything has to do with the real world as much as nothing does. What an empty statement. Anyway, we're going to talk about a fantasy novel today, The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. It's the second book of The Wheel of Time. My friend Alex and I have been reading The Wheel of Time, and actually during this episode, I think we decide that we're just gonna keep reading it. I am gonna read The Stand at some point I am reading other books. We're going to be talking about, I'm very excited to talk about Blind Sight this Friday, and that will be one of the casts that is released next week, but today it is Thursday. We got one more week left in July. It's the summer of 2023. The summer is so heavy. I have swept up a little bit. The house is, full of dirt from cats running in and out and potted plants being carried around, but, and a lot of hair. Yeah, their hair just starts coming off in waves and clouds during the summer, so that's where I'm at. Let's check in with Alex and talk about Rand and Celine and Loyal and our friends who are involved with the Great Hunt. Rikapachu. All right. Okay. Yeah. So what I was going to say is that, I said I was going to do some reading, but I got distracted with the potatoes. So I have read a portion of chapter 27 in which Rand is thinking, I might use the one power to fry this Trolloc. But of course, he should not do that.
But yeah, we didn't talk last week about it because we only got, I think, a few chapters in during that week. And last we talked about they were still in the Emerald Dream.
Yes, that's right. The last time, did we, we didn't even see a giant hand clutching a crystal ball the last time I spoke to you.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Giant statue in during this section.
Oh yeah, that's right. As a matter of fact, the last thing that I had read that we discussed was Nynaeve getting force choked.
Yes.
not force choked. They slammed each other against walls. That's a little bit gentler than choking one another.
I guess technically.
Well, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if gentler is the word. There is something more. There's something so much more purposely forceful about choking someone, like more purposefully violent, I think, than just exerting force at somebody in their direction. It's a Sith. It's a Darth Vader kind of thing to force choke someone.
Intensely life-threatening.
Right? Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. You can fuck someone up by choking them. Yeah.
Yeah. Throwing somebody up against the wall and holding them there is not quite as life-threatening.
So what Nynaeve and the Emerald were doing in Chapter 8 was from the future. I don't think that Chapter 8 is correct. Might have been Chapter 18. It's just sort of exerting their power against one another. And it was we did discuss that, but it was surprising that Nynaeve was able to with such aplomb. Good morning, Jasper. He is really just bouncing around like a whole little person these days.
Yeah, he is. But yeah, so then Rand stole the horn back from Fane, and
I didn't think they were going to get away with it.
Is quite lucky.
The lady stinks. I made a note of that several times.
Oh yeah,
she stinks like a narcotics agent. She's gonna turn him into the cops or somebody. I don't know if she's a Forsaken.
Flipping back and forth on like, oh, I like it so much when you're like this, and you're an asshole. Do what I tell you.
She is really good.
She's very scared of him walking towards that statue, though.
Oh yeah.
What exactly was going on in his head during that time?
There were a lot of things. Going on. That was another. We have another Rand's hallucinating a little bit, or something is happening kind of scene.
Yeah, a little bit.
But also there are guards coming to apprehend them, so everyone is anxious.
Yeah.
But he's almost trotting off a cliff, being mesmerized by a giant crystal being unearthed. You know where Darkshore is? It's on Azeroth. Yeah. There's a bunch of statues underneath it. There's a few places that they're digging them up, and I pictured this scene exactly, a scene from Darkshore. Like I exactly pictured Darkshore the way it looks in Warcraft, with elves walking around. The guards were elves.
Yeah. Except like the statue is like kind of the size of the mountains nearby.
Right.
Kind of the scope of So like if they were excavating the side of a mountain and there was a single statue in that would be, but very similar idea.
Yeah, I actually, now that I think of it,
like Ulduar, I think.
Sure, absolutely. Which one is Ulduar? There's a lot of Uldu somethings. Ulduar is all far north, right?
No, the one in the far south. It was when they.
Oh, that is Ulduar. Yeah, Cataclysm. Yep.
Yeah.
There's Titans and stuff buried under there. Yeah.
Yeah. They just roped off everything and like the big giant statues and stuff. So, yeah, it's much more like that. And then they get to the inn.
Yeah, the 9 Rings, which has nothing to do with Iron Man.
Or 9 Rings in general, really.
Yeah, really. It's just the name of the place. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that inns from olden times did, where they're like, this thing, and you're like, what does that have to do with anything?
Well, it's what's on the sign. Yeah, it's what the guy decided to carve on the sign 3 generations ago.
He actually just got this sign on the cheap. You know, it was one of his test things, so he just kind of went with it. But yeah.
And we get a lot of talk about the Game of Houses.
Oh yeah, and Celine also made her way out, and completely unnoticed by an entire platoon of guardsmen.
She really did not want to be involved with these guardsmen, or she wanted to go. She's going to the same place they're going, but yeah, she basically, that's it. She won't travel with the guardsmen.
Yeah, that was cool.
Maybe she slipped away through the ether. Maybe she slipped away with one of the teleporting stones. Maybe one we know about, maybe one we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Rand thinks that Sidane feels greasy.
Yes.
That's like, there's something... I feel like that word works on me in particular, but that's an interesting way to describe something you're tempted to do, having it feel greasy.
Yeah. Well, especially because they're like, like talking about dipping your hand in it. And, like,
right.
And they're talking about, the taint on saidin. Like, that's definitely, like, there's a lot of water metaphors for the one power. So, like, that really works, having it be, like, if something is tainted, like, having it have, like, an oil slick on the top. Just being,
yeah. I really like that description of it. I think that works. That really works on me in particular. Moraine and Lan are in a frightfully codependent relationship. These two should be in couples. They're not even a couple, but they should be in some kind of friends therapy, bonded therapy. They're not doing well. They're not healthy for each other.
Well, they like. It's very.
You know what it feels like? You know, this sort of trope where, like, you're sick of your girlfriend, or maybe I should say I'm sick of my girlfriend, so I'm just mean to her until she goes away. It feels like that's what Moraine is doing. She's trying to see how mean. She's trying to see how mean she can be to him without him going away. She's trying to figure out where that line is, and in order to do so, she's making him upset. Yeah. That's right, Jasper. She's tormenting him in various emotional ways.
I mean, the only thing that I'll say about it is that she's an Aes Sedai. And so, while it does seem like she's doing that, absolutely, she's an Aes Sedai.
1,000 times more in this book do you get the impression of the truth is not the truth you think it is, that they're the double speaking sense of how in every word what they say is probably a lie, but not technically. And now we know about the 3 oaths.
Yes, we do, because they were explained to Nynaeve.
Did Nynaeve, and were they explained to her, or has she sworn them, or not yet?
Explain them to her.
Okay.
The swearing is for Aes Sedai. Once you become an Aes Sedai, you have to swear on the 3 oaths on the oath rod.
Nynaeve is accepted.
Yes.
That's cool.
She's been accepted. She got a ring.
Yeah, she has a golden serpent ring. Yes. Yeah, man. Does he have some snacks? Does he have snacks?
He's got lots of snacks.
Good.
And he's still got the rest of his bottle down there. So if he needs it, I'll be grabbing it for him.
They send Nynaeve into the past, the present, and the future.
Yes. The past with the Forsaken. And she channels and they're like, you shouldn't be able to do
that. Yeah, she's super duper. They didn't even tell her that she shouldn't channel in there because there's supposed to be a ward. First of all, she's not supposed to be able to. It should be impossible for her to. It's warded against it.
Supposed to be able to remember that she can. Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. And also in the past, and the warding may or may not have anything to do with it, but of course I feel that it is because of Nynaeve's main characteriness. In the past, women have gone in there, they have channeled, and it has fizzled them out permanently. They have emerged with being cut off from the source. Does that drive a woman as mad as it drives a man? Or, wait, being cut off is not exactly what drives a man mad. It's just that it doesn't cure him of whatever madness he has already absorbed.
Well, that's partially true as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is, they've described it a little bit, and they've talked about it being addictive to like touch the source.
Yes.
And so one of the things that they've talked about is like how it enhances your senses and everything. So like is basically the idea of being in sensory deprivation, not like complete sensory deprivation, but just like more or less the same thing as like extreme depression, just all the time, and you could get out of it. So
sure, right.
It's like it's very likely to kill anyone who's cut off from the source because to experiencing life at a higher level, and now they can't ever do it again. And they know that it's there. They know that that ability is right there for them, but they just can't ever touch it again.
A magical depression. Yeah, that can't be broken because it's a magical curse.
Yeah. And what you're saying about like getting more in depth with the Aes Sedai in this one, like absolutely, but like it's also, I feel like it's really cool because it answers a lot of the questions that you had in that first one, where you were like, you know, how are they not in control of everything, and how are they not like, and it's very much that. And I think it's funny that you say like you see the like much more the truth is not the truth that you think it is.
Oh yeah,
because there's a lot that she said in the first book that you don't really understand that isn't the truth that she was saying it was until you read 4 or 5 more books in than we're in now. So while you think what she said was the truth that she said it is, you don't know that it is. And you don't know that it's what she was saying it for. So I find that really cool because like it's layers on layers on layers on layers deep. And Vandina and Delius, like really, really great characters. I love them, and their story is going to happen too, and it's very it's good.
What were the 2 names that you just said?
Vandina and Delius.
Vandine and Delius.
Delius, the 2 Aes Sedai that Moraine was perusing their histories.
Oh, yes, in the little shack with Sad Lan.
Yep.
We have a Sad Lan chapter followed immediately by a Sad Nynaeve about Lan chapter.
Yep. You can tell they're in love. And that's the big thing for Moraine is like she's fighting, you know, Tarmon Gardane, the last battle. Everything she's doing is geared towards that. And Lan used to be that, but now he's fallen in love, and like he has more to his life than just fighting that war.
Bad news. That's not where you want your boy's head to be at.
It's you said codependency, and like I guess on some level it is, but it's like your best friend falling in love, you know?
Sure.
And you have the same like connection to them that you used to, and you're like you can see that they're in love, and they're like, no, I'm still 100%, and you're like, you're like 90%. I'm like, I know you're 90%. I just want you to like accept it and like understand that like the dynamic between us is different now because you've fallen in love. It's okay, dude.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the 2 ladies that they're staying with. They're historians.
Yeah. It's kind of described in the book, but like they basically took their what they know of like the histories, and they've gone out into the world and started digging more for like any scraps of history that they could find.
Yeah.
Which is notably a very brown thing to do, and yet neither of them are brown Aja. So.
They're blue and green?
Yes. Yep.
A lot of we've spent the most times with blue and green. We've met some browns, we've met some reds, maybe even some yellows.
And there's good reason for that. They'll explain the Ajas later, and it's not really that much of a spoiler, but like, so blue takes up causes. Green is battle Aja.
Oh, okay. That's why they need all the dudes. Green needs lots of dudes.
Yes. Red is, I think, described by the Reds as justice.
Okay, sure.
White is logic. Yellow is healing.
Yep.
Am I missing one?
Brown.
Blue, green.
Study. History.
White.
Brown.
Yeah. History, knowledge, studying. Yep. Gray Aja is negotiation.
Oh, I don't think I've even heard of Gray so far.
Yeah, I think We only know of one white so far, Alviarin.
Okay.
There had to have been 2 grays, but it wasn't really covered at all because in Faladar she was accompanied by from each Aja.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't really covered, beyond Varen, and I don't remember the other brown that was with her.
Yeah, I don't know. I
don't remember her name.
I'm not positive if it specifically said like all of their would have been 14 or 15 names. Obviously, we got most of them because we did get a ton of names in those first couple of chapters.
Yeah, and that's kind of the scope of it too. When you're like, oh, there's so many names there, it's like yes, but also like if you think about how many people were actually involved, like we didn't even get half of the names of the people involved. So
sure, yeah. And we're gonna slowly explore. We're gonna slowly get to know each of them. So
yeah.
Introduce a little bit at a time.
And then Egwene met Elaine and didn't once have any sort of moment of shame at all when she realized, oh, hey, Ren was telling the truth. She wasn't like, oh, whoops, I should tell him sorry. She was just like, oh, he wasn't actually lying.
She was big on it.
Doesn't even care. Nothing, not a single recognition of whoops, I fucked up.
That's and again, people like that. It's it really is a whole type. It's in her personal timeline, she's just sort of edited how she felt about that situation or how real it is to her now, and she's like, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter how she behaved in regards to it.
Yeah. It was just oh, well, I was wrong, and now I'm right.
It's amazing. This guy's wife must have been a sociopath. I absolutely know people like this, and I try not to. I would not diagnose anyone, but Egwene is absolutely a type of person that I've known 3 or 4 people with sociopathy, I guess. I don't want to. Yeah, that's what it is, though.
You gotta remember, they all have, in some way, are like her. They're not all exactly like her, and that's where it's he takes portions of her and incorporates that part into the characters. So in that way, there's a lot of similarities, and once you get a lot more POV chapters from more women, you'll find where the similarities are and where the differences are, and you'll notice the similarities are very pointed and prominent, and then the deviations are much more their personality versus his wife.
Sure. Not to speculate upon. Sorry, Mr. Jordan. Not to speculate upon what your wife was like. I don't know. Good Lord. But yeah, and honestly, man, I don't know if it's because of talking to you that I have this because now I do. As soon as it says Egwene, I narrow my eyes oh boy, what kind of shit is she gonna say now? It might be because of talking to you about the first book that now I've got an animosity.
I didn't mean to taint that. You recognize it. You might not have recognized it if you'd read it on your own, but it is very much there, and once pointed out, it's very noticeable every time she comes up.
So Min is here, and we get a piece of the mechanics.
Yes.
I'm not sure who.
Ooh.
I'm not sure who's
more interesting things from her.
Yeah, I'm not sure who exactly speculates that perhaps everyone, including the women, have been somewhat cut off from the source by accidentally culling humanity's connection to it by gentling the men.
Yeah, I think they were saying that Sheriam had said that.
Okay, she's the
about it.
Sheriam is the sort of overseer of the novices, and promoting them to be accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the mistress of novices. Yeah.
So she had gotten into an argument about this topic.
Yeah. And it's very interesting, and we'll see why as the books go on, but it's very much an interesting topic because they talk about how severe Aes Sedai training is,
right,
and how often they put people out, and that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Like, they talk about culling humanity because of the Red Aja, but they don't even stop and consider, oh hey, we're putting people out all the time.
Sure.
Maybe people just don't want to become Aes Sedai.
And there is a lot of talk about how there are fewer and fewer, and they are they're running out of witches. The world is winding down.
Yep.
Jasper, how are you? That's great to hear. I'm glad you're doing good. But yeah, so the gang is all here. Min is here, Gawain is here, Elaine the princess is here, and Galad
Galadedrid Damodred.
Galadedrid Damodred. Has that entire thing has not appeared in the text yet? That probably is in the glossary.
Yes, it should be in the glossary.
Yeah, I have not read him described as that entire name.
Yeah,
that's pretty great.
He has the same father as Elaine and Gawain. It was, what was his name?
Oh, their father's name? I do not know.
Taringale, I want to say. That's a name. I know it's a name somewhere in there.
What is going on, Jasper? He's making a very determined face.
Yeah.
He was a moment ago anyway.
Figure out what's going on in his nose. But yes, anyways, so same father, different mother. Yeah, we have Damodred, Lord Galadedrid.
Yes. I did not think we were going to see Tom again so soon. I sort of thought maybe they were going to dangle that a little bit. Yeah, actually, honestly, I feel like I'm excited with how things are going, but I was like sure that when Rand was stealing, we're going back a bit now, but when Rand was stealing the horn from Thane and his followers, I was like, this is idiotic. This is going to go so wrong, and the rest of the book is going to be someone having to rescue Rand from cannibal monsters. I was like, there's no way this is going to work. I'm glad that it's cool that it did, and now Selene is the problem. But
yeah, it's really cool. Like, I like the way that they did it because like it's absolutely insane, and like he recognizes it as it's happening. He recognizes it before he does it. He recognizes it after he does it, and he's like, "Why did that work? That makes no sense. This is ridiculous. What's even going on?"
Maybe that sorceress was maybe more than one sorceress or sorcerer was maybe they're being played. Maybe it is too easy. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that you've got to remember and like think about is Fane very much has a connection to all three of those boys.
Yes.
So how did that connection, like how did he not notice that it was growing stronger as Rand was getting closer? So somebody knowledgeable who knew that Fane had that ability, had to have blocked that ability for Rand to be able to get that close and get out without Fane noticing.
Some sneaky things are going on.
And yes, Aes Sedai aren't the only ones who speak in half-truths and do things sneakily. But yes, we found Tom and Dana, and they're living together, and he's trying to make her into a court bard.
Tom is really mad that there are actors doing a play, and he's spiteful that they have a banner that looks like a backdrop of the scene they're portraying, and he's saying, "I create the background with my voice, and my characters live in the imaginations of the audience. These newfangled, he's doing the old man yells at cloud."
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's great. I think it's great. I love it. I love that. That's what I love it. I love that. That's what he's saying.
I also like it because, like, it's true in the context of this book, at least. Like, he very much like creates the whole like story in your head, and like it's certainly like a valid argument. Like, it's more vivid to a person to create the story in their head than it is to have somebody play it out in front of them.
Yeah,
like,
he's an artist.
There's a difference between reading a book and watching a TV show.
That's an excellent parallel. TV shows killed the literature star.
Have you ever watched the whole TV show and said at the end of it, it was all somebody doing a play and Tom yells at them for it? I would watch the entire show just for that. Because, like, just the meta-ness of it just being like, the reason we did it so poorly is specifically because...
We made the exact point that is made 2/3 the way through the second book. I don't know if I guess I'm either neutral or I'm mad. I guess I don't want to say that I'm mad that they're making a second season, but I wish they wouldn't. I have not watched the final episode. I think I've watched, there might be maybe the last 2 episodes of the first season, which was like 8 episodes, right? So like,
yeah,
episodes like 7 and 8, I think, are what I've not watched. And I just wish it wasn't there. I wish it wasn't an option. I wish I'd never, like, when I'm kind of considering what I'm going to watch at the end of the day, I wish it just wouldn't show up. I wish I could block it. So when I browse, it doesn't show up as an option. Yeah. But they're making a second season, and maybe, I might just complain about it. Now I'm the old man yelling at clouds, and everything comes full circle. The wheel turns, and history repeats itself, and here we are, yelling at clouds. Maybe I'll be fine. Maybe I just won't watch anything more, because I can't even imagine watching the end of it at this point. I don't even want to know what they do.
Yes.
So I'm just like,
also the Carethian cycle.
Yeah.
I like both of the passages. We've already got the twice and twice he shall be marked. Once the Huron beset his path, so he's already got that, obviously, with the brand in his hand.
So is that one, or is the fact that he's wearing clothing and swords marked with herons, does that also count?
Well, he specifically is marked. Twice and twice he shall be marked. He be marked. So he has to be marked. So that branding in his skin is clearly
is one of them. Oh boy, okay.
Yeah.
And that's more Freddy Krueger shit too. Cool.
Yeah. Twice dawns the day when his blood is shed, which that's a little more straightforward thinking about it. I
think that's happened twice already, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of a hint at what the end is going to be, but they'll get into that, I think, in the next book, or maybe the book after. But like, it's specifically referring to the dragon, so like the dragon and the dragon reborn. It's pretty straightforward when it says once for mourning, like he died mourning, killing his entire bloodline,
mourning his own work.
Yeah,
sure, that works. Where was that about happening?
What do you mean?
Where was Louis Theroux's palace?
Oh,
And physically,
where was it?
yeah, like where was it on the map? Was it near the Dragon Mount or we don't know? It was the world was completely different. Yeah, it was before that world was broken, before this world came.
You walked through a portal to a completely different place.
Okay.
You teleported to a completely different place. And that's where Dragon Mount is. Right next to Tar Valon.
Right, yeah.
So the place that he died is right next to Tar Valon. But where his castle is, we're not sure.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But yeah, so cool. We've got cool prophecies.
Yes.
I like it when people in fantasy novels sing little songs or there's a little bit of a prophecy.
Mm-hmm. There's also songs. We got songs singing from the soldiers when Rand was playing his flute. Which he tried to return to Tom, and Tom said, "No, but I'll take the harp. Because you worked on the farm, and therefore you can never play a harp."
That's against the rules. Fucking gross farmer's fingers on my fucking harp. Tom also has had enough of adventuring.
Yes, and has been heavily involved in the Game of Houses.
Yeah, he's playing the Game of Houses with that soldier that escorted them around here. Yeah, and this is Cairhien, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we're at the next big city where Moraine is from, and where hopefully they can maybe meet up with the other boys. Ingtar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ingtar.
And of course, Matt and,
Uno, Reagan, Nasema. I can list off all of the major Shinerans, because they're very important. Kieran, who is with him right now, I'm just going to say he will disappear for 10 more books. And then he will be super important.
He's going to come back and important. He's going to come back and do some sniffing.
No, I'm just saying, like, his role is very, very tiny later on, but probably the most pivotal role.
Around around this place, there are a bunch of minstrels with big puppets that look like Trollocs.
Yes. Yep.
And they're parading through the streets with some of the puppets look like big knights battling with big Trollocs.
Yes.
And yeah, basically, as I said 40 minutes or so ago, I'm at the point where one of those Trolloc puppets turns out to be the real thing.
Yep.
And Rand is thinking about frying it.
Oh, I think one of the funniest parts is, if you remember from the last chapter when they first got into the Foregate, and Rand was like, "Oh, if only it were so easy to kill a Trolloc."
Yeah.
And then a Trolloc attacks him, and instantly, within like 3 seconds, he kills it. If only it were that easy.
He underestimates himself. I like all of his moves. I like the moves that Lan taught him.
Yes. The sword fighting, the blade mastery. I like also, part of the reason that he does think so lowly of himself is, if you recall, the last thing that Lan told him about how much he had been training was, you know enough not to cut off your own foot.
And there you go. That's important.
That's what Lan rates his skill level at. So, just to give you an idea of where Lan's at.
That's good. He's Lan. I like Lan a lot. Lan's a smart guy.
Yes.
Yeah, the moon rises over the lakes is one of Rand's sword. All of Rand's sword maneuvers have little names like that, and I think
Cat
I think
crosses
it's
the courtyard.
fucking great. Yeah. Who crosses the courtyard?
Cat crosses the courtyard.
Oh, that's a great name for a sword maneuver. Yeah.
It's not even a maneuver as much as it is like a stance.
Oh, okay, okay.
Movement method. Yeah, it was when Rand was really nervous going to meet the Amerlin.
Oh, right. Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Cat crosses the courtyard and he immediately.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I'm right where he is defeating these Trollocs, and that's that's what's going on. We are definitely maybe not quite 2/3 in, but we are moving towards the final stretch.
Yep. There's a whole lot that's packed into this last little bit.
Great.
There's a lot that's packed into the last little bit. And some of it is time skipped, but it's time skipped in a very like important way. So like, yeah, important and impactful, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
we've got go ahead.
Yeah, since you just got in a little bit into 27, we got Loyal showing why Ogier are feared, since he's wrestling a Trolloc.
Right.
Not even.
Rand's doing the trope where he doesn't want to shoot because he doesn't know if he's gonna hit his friend or the other guy. Yeah, that's right where I am, because he's right where the last thing I read was him considering using the power in that situation.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I will continue. I didn't. It was a couple days. I think it was. Well, I had a really, like I said, I don't know if everyone had a weird weekend, but I sure did, and I know,
it was weird for me too. Trust me.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing okay, and I'm glad Jasper is bouncing around.
Yeah, maybe this week I won't fall asleep during the Embers thing, and really fall asleep. I just kind of like do this zoning out thing where I'm like, I just stop paying attention to everything.
I sort of,
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to stop. Well, I'll tell you what, I will say thank you now for talking to me about The Great Hunt again.
Yeah.
And we'll do it again. And yeah.
I'm excited. We'd probably be able to finish it by the end of the month. So that'll be.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. Awesome.
And then if you want to, we can move on to the next book.
I do want to read The Stand at some point. Do you have any interest in reading The Stand? But because it doesn't, I'm not going to urge you to read The Stand if you don't want to. But I'm also into reading book 3 next.
Okay.
I can read The Stand in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to finish the series because when I get into it, I just want to keep going with it. So.
Great, let's do it. I will at some point. And again, I'm always reading other things, and I listened to a book and actually, I'm still recording. Have you heard of, or do you have any interest in Blind Sight by Peter Watts? That's the other book I was kind of talking about in Vampire Chat and in the book chat. I listened to it.
I'm down for reading it. For me personally, I'm probably just going to finish the series off, and then I'll go into whatever other books we're reading at the point that I finish it.
Cool. Let's keep that one in mind, though. Or that's an official recommendation from May. And I listened to an audio book just off of YouTube, so I recommend it. There's a lot of cool stuff to think about in it, and but yeah, other than that, let's do it. I'm down to do book 3 next, and yeah. That's right. So, thank you for listening to Maybe We'll Talk. I've been working on this project for the better part of a year at this point, I reckon, and we're moving out of the part of the Dave project where I kind of stopped talking about scheduling as much, and now I'm going to start talking about my audio settings and start freaking out about that. Maybe not, but that's not even really a pattern. I'm making stuff up, but I don't know if Windows updated. Well, a few things happened. Well, I'll tell you what. Now that I'm really kind of starting to get settled into what I'm doing with this project, maybe for season 2, like I said, I'll look into Audacity or some other kind of recording software, and maybe we'll do some more. Now I want to polish what I'm doing a little bit, I guess is what I'm saying. But also I feel like, well, part of what happened in this episode, there is some settings were weird, and I think Windows did update some stuff, you sneaky Windows. But I had my headphones turned up at some point because of the air conditioning, because July continues to taunt me and torment me in various ways. Boy, this summer really does feel so heavy. It always does, not this summer in particular. I'm always busy. I always feel weighted down. There's always a gloom of some type. So, Man, is the echo being picked up still? Because that's why did I mention my headphones being turned up? I thought if I turned them down and put the headphones around my knee, that the echo would not be picked up. Oh, wait. Never mind, sorry. I'm also live on Twitch right now, finishing up my work. The echo is because, look, I can turn it on and back off, or off and back on. It's because, there were 2 echoes. So anyway, that was The Great Hunt. We're continuing with that. We're going to be finishing that up and talking about that book as a whole pretty soon, and that might be around the end of what season 1 is, towards the end of this summer. Maybe I'll take a break from doing everything in August except soap. Basically, that's going on now. The soap thing is real now. So congratulations to me. Thank you everyone for listening to this podcast, and check out all of my stuff on koyadk.tv. That's CUYADK.tv. You can get a link to my Etsy and buy some soap from me. You can support me on Patreon or Twitch. You can watch me live on Twitch, which I happen to be live right now. And who knows what my schedule is like. Sometimes I'm live while I'm working on this kind of stuff, and sometimes it's just a feed of my porch and my cats and my garden, and sometimes I play video games. So anyway, thank you, and I'll be back soon. More of this. There will be more episodes next week. Deadlight, Dead Sight, Blind Sight, maybe Nightmare 5, and other stuff that we're going to talk about with all the people. So also on that website, koyadk.tv, get a link to my Discord and come talk to us about that stuff and podcasting and whatever. And so, all right, that's enough. Thrash, play us out, please. Hey, welcome back to Maybe We'll Talk. A podcast. I almost went right into it. Why don't I? A podcast where I talk to people in various methods. On the phone, voice over IP, in person sometimes. I don't know if I actually have published any recordings on this podcast of any in-person conversations, but it might happen. I've got some recording equipment, so does Pete, and we've talked. There are some real world people that we want to talk to that we may get to at some time. But anyway, today I am talking with Saint again and our friend Locke for the first time that we went to high school with. So way back as usual, as far as me and Saint are concerned. Me and Saint have been covering Vampire the Masquerade, so deep time 90s pop culture. Today we're talking about a book called Blind Sight by Peter Watts, which was a science fiction novel written in 2006. It has a lot of good ideas in it, a lot of interesting ideas, I guess. I don't know if I should say good. And I listened to it. I had a lot of fun. These guys had read it, in previous years, and they both kind of got refreshed on the material, and we had a conversation about it, and here it is. And before we get into it, I did want to make sure I mention that this is definitely full spoilers, and this is a very interesting book, and you may, if you are interested, pick it up and read it yourself. It's a book about a spaceship, and there's vampires and artificial intelligence, and thoughts, a lot of thinking about human consciousness. So that's the non-spoiler review, and what follows this is the spoiler-filled review. First of all, it's very exciting to have both Locke and Saint here, who I've known both of you for a really long time.
Hello.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Thank you.
It's like the high school reunion, but just the cool kids.
That's exactly what it is. And I guess my first question to both of you is, do you guys reckon that you are experiencing consciousness right now?
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I would say that I'm a localized phenomenon.
Oh, that's a good way to... Okay.
To quote Tycho Brahe of Penny Arcade.
That's a good one. I like that I'm a localized phenomenon. That is
as far as I know.
What I believe. I am some sort of ongoing process inside this meat and electrical thing sitting at the top of my body. And I mean the rest of the body is also the as Nietzsche once said, the mind is but a plaything of the body.
Sure.
So
I do think it would be really interesting to talk about whether human mind uploading, whether either of you think that's something that's possible. It's a little bit getting into the weeds of the book, to start with, but I don't know. I think that so much of what we are is our nervous system and our biological processes interfacing with the electricity up there.
I think if you're gonna end up digitally simulating a human consciousness, you're gonna have to probably digitally simulate their entire body, at the experience of them being in their body, for it to work.
It's so like this, basically.
It's gonna it's gonna be pretty similar to this, probably.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think this has all happened before, and it will all happen again.
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah.
If you have enough Big Bangs and universes in the P-brains, the bulk of the universe is spreading out through the multiverse. Yeah.
Here's my second question for both of you. Do you guys reckon that you are alone in the rooms you're in?
Are you talking about my skull or the room that I'm sitting in?
The one you're sitting in. Are you sure there's nothing that you are not seeing that's in the room with you?
Oh, yeah. I actually just read that chapter maybe 10 minutes before we started, because I started going through the book again. Well, my cat is behind me, so I'm definitely not. But,
Okay.
in terms of aliens that are co-opting, or non-human intelligences that are co-opting my sensorium, so they can just go out of phase with the. I've only ever read the word saccades.
Yeah, the saccades, the jiggles in your eyeballs.
Jiggles in my eye jiggles. Yeah, no, I have no idea, man. What about you?
No, they're definitely. I've seen them my whole life.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I've seen. I mean, so there's the floaters. I definitely see the floaters in my eyes more and more the older I get. But the stuff that is in Blindsight about what our brains can do under weird circumstances, or even normal circumstances. I mean, every time that you pull out a memory from your archive in your brain, and you put it back, you change it a little bit.
Yeah, figuring that one out these days.
Human beings are terrible eyewitnesses, and that's just like the prosaic stuff. You get down to like Cotard's delusion and Blindsight itself, and these other things. Like, there's no real reason to trust anything you're seeing, or quote unquote seeing.
Like one thing that I tell to people, that because it's really easy to verify for yourself, is to test for your own optical nerve blind spot. Because the way the human eyeball is built, it's a reflector on like the sort of back half of your eyeball, except for one little spot sort of in the middle where the optic nerve is. And there can't be a reflector there because that's what the nerve is. So if you close one eye and you fix your vision on a point far away, and you stick out your thumb, and you slowly move your thumb in front. I forget exactly how you do this, but it's something like this. You slowly move your thumb in front while you keep your vision fixated on the point away, and you'll eventually see your thumb, boom, vanish.
Yep, I just did it.
Another
one that's super easy.
You can do it with a thumb.
Not just your optic nerve, but your brain edits stuff out of your visual field. Like your nose is hovering in front of both your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you pay attention, if you think about it, of course you can see it. You can see the point of your nose.
Yeah.
Most of the time you don't think about it. And same thing, like I wear glasses. Anybody who wears glasses, full time, has the experience of knowing that eventually you don't pay attention to the fact that they're on your face. You don't see the frames around the corners of your vision, even though when you think about it, of course you can see the frames around the corner of your vision when you stop and look. But it's not important. It's not important visual data for your brain to take in. So it doesn't pay attention. It edits it out. That happens with whole experiences. Think about very routine, boring experiences that you do every single day. So that people joke about, like, I don't remember what I had for breakfast. It's the same thing you always have for breakfast. It's the same thing you have for breakfast like every other day. And you don't think about it because that's what you do all the time. You drive to work. It's the same every day. You don't think about it. You zone out. And then, it's a non-novel experience. So your brain has no need to write it down, other than a sort of vague generalized, like, yeah, the same shit happened. And
then you get to work and you don't know if you left the stove on.
Yeah, or someone was like, "Did you see the elephant?" The ape?
Or did you see the black ape, the black gorilla?
Yeah.
The line between lazy and efficient, as far as the human, or any brain probably, but our brains for sure, the line between lazy and efficient is pretty blurry. It doesn't do anything it doesn't have to do.
Yeah, that makes that. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, Blindsight by Peter Watts. When I describe this book to people, I say it's a first contact story. It's a story. It's a science fiction book about meeting human beings meeting aliens for the first time. And I also say it is the best first contact story that I've ever read. And I include things like Arrival and Contact. These are classic first contact stories. They're just amazing. there's older first contact stories too. I think of like some Asimov and Clark stories. Like, what's that one? Child is End.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, where like, the aliens come down from space and they're like, okay, everybody, give up your nuclear weapons. You're done with this shit. You guys have to be grown-ups now.
Enough screwing around, humanity.
Yeah, like you seriously can't be fucking around. And then it's and they're all interesting. They're all different in their own way. What's that? There's that classic movie, The Day the World Stood Still.
Yep, with Keanu Reeves.
They're remade with Keanu Reeves.
That's the movie where the guy says Clark Blatu Karatu Niktu or whatever it is.
Indeed.
Yeah. The original.
Yeah, that one.
Not that one.
Yeah, and the thing about the sci-fi genre is that when it comes to people imagining aliens, the interesting ones are always the ones where the alien is something really fucking weird and
Something actually alien,
not just people with like dicks glued onto their faces and who are racial caricatures,
space barbarians,
of some other culture, or like space cats or something.
Right.
They act just like cats. And space spiders, they totally act just like evil spiders in space for some reason.
Wouldn't that be an alien thing to meet? Yeah.
Right. But there have definitely been, and I mean, obviously we're about to say this book involves some really fucking weird aliens. And there have definitely been weird aliens before in science fiction. Like, I think of Solaris, for instance.
Yeah, that's
I'm totally unfamiliar.
It's a sentient ocean that covers an entire planet somewhere out in space.
Okay, they did that on Star Trek.
Yeah, and it communicates by like weird psychic things. In the movie version, they made a movie version. They made several movie versions actually. The latest version had George Clooney in it.
Yeah, that was quite good actually.
Yeah, it was apparently kind of good. And it makes your dead relatives like appear in the space station.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And they're like real people, and that's how it tries to communicate with the human beings.
All right, sure.
Yeah, or you.
Yeah, it's weird.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's creepy.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's an example of like a non-human alien intelligence that's really weird. It's hard to think of others that aren't just like Star Trek aliens, or
stuff on your forehead.
Yeah, or space gods, and people just kind of wave their hands and say, their motivations are impossible to understand, but then they just mostly act like regular people who are godlike.
I think The Arrival is a really good example of really aliens.
Arrival is a really good one because that's a story that imagines creatures that view the flow of time.
Yeah, all of reality come from a different angle.
In a different way. That's
a really good job of replicating the short story in that movie. I thought it was really faithful. It was really good.
That movie would have made a good short story, yeah.
There's
a really good short story in that movie, yeah.
Well, there's Ted Chiang is the author who wrote the short story on which Arrival is based, and that whole book of shorts that he wrote is killer.
Yeah, I've read a couple of those. You recommended that to me a long time ago.
I feel like Revelations Space Series has some decent weird aliens.
Yes. Revelation Space Series is good with that way. There's some aliens that are... He does have some aliens that are basically just weird, but they're there. But he does have like one alien that I guess in retrospect now is probably based heavily on Solaris, because Solaris was a story that came out
like the
60s.
What are they called? The ones that break you down when you go to the ocean? The
pattern jugglers, which are like a weird Gestalt consciousness composed of like algae and like alien biomass floating in vast planet oceans. and they can communicate with people by like invading their brains with like microscopic bacteria, organism, machine things, and sometimes they take you apart at a molecular level, and sometimes they don't push you back together, and sometimes they put you back together and you're different.
A lot like Siri, our protagonist from Blindsight.
Yeah,
A little bit like that, yeah.
Yeah, didn't quite come back the same. Well, according to the people who knew him.
When he was young or when he was an adult, he
Well,
did
yeah,
not
like,
come back the
so-
same.
Well, we don't know if he
both
came back
sides.
at all.
Well, I guess we
I think
kind of
that's an
don't.
open
Yeah,
question.
that is kind of. You'll just have to imagine your Siri Keaton.
You'll just have to imagine. Yeah.
yeah.
You want to talk about Siri?
What a cool point of view character.
Yeah.
And what a creepy, I say creepy perspective, not because it's like, oh, he doesn't get people. Like, that's BS. I just mean in the sense that, like, there are many things which Siri says, which it's getting into this, like, what are we conversation.
Right.
He's very reductive sometimes about, like, particularly when he's talking about his relationship with Chelsea,
Sure.
the woman that he's dating for part of it. And he's like talking about like mating strategies and psychological tricks that people play on each other. And when I say creepy, I mean he strips away a lot of the artwork that we drape over the processes of our cognition.
Yes.
And looking at the raw mechanics of things can sometimes be a little weird. It's like seeing a Terminator without its skin.
All right.
Right, or seeing how the sausage is made, as the saying goes. Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think it's really reductive in a certain way, in its own way, to say that Siri isn't good with people, because that's not true. His whole job is to be really good with people. It's just that he has a really weird. He has a really weird problem. In the book, it is described how he has undergone a radical
Hemispherectomy.
Hemispherectomy. Thank you. Radical hemispherectomy because of his terrible epilepsy as a child. This is a real medical procedure where they remove half of your brain. They remove half of the cerebellum, the top part, I think. Is that the cerebellum or the cerebrum? Anyway, you can do just fine without it. The other half figures out how to work.
Yeah, well, you can do just fine without it. You is a really wiggly word in that sentence.
Yeah, because obviously that kind of radical brain surgery does tend to have a serious effect on people's personality and psyche. And I mean, it's like, I don't know how it really goes, that how well it goes, or what it's like for like real people in the real world.
There's a really. Oh, go ahead.
But
Sorry.
I know it's done. I know it is done, like right now, today, in the 21st century, in the real world. But this is obviously,
you can separate corpus callosum. I know they do that part.
Yeah. This is obviously, this book takes place in the future. This book takes place. I think the exact date is not quite fixed. Or no, it is fixed actually. It takes place right around the turn of the 22nd centuries. It's like 2201 or 2099 or something like that. 2098.
I'm really curious to know if they actually, if we currently do remove half of the brain matter, or if it's just severing the two cores essentially.
Yeah, because do you fill it with cotton or something?
No, I think it. You can. I don't know. Beats me. But
there's a really interesting talk that Watts gave that's on YouTube that you can look up about the basically like the bandwidth between the two hemispheres of the brain and like how fat that pipe is from a data perspective, and that the corpus callosum is a fat enough pipe that the two hemispheres cohere into one personality, and that when you sever that, you sever that pipe. And so one of the things, it's a really cool talk. It's maybe an hour and a half. It's worth watching. He has some really awesome insights about like ants and hive minds and all kinds of stuff. But the thing that he's most concerned about in that talk is that basically once you increase the baud rate, the bandwidth between pieces of a mind, it coheres into one. And he's like, so we're trying to build Neuralink with an unlimited data band. You get this thing installed, and you might not even be there anymore. It might just be the three of us as just one being because we have enough data, a fat enough data pipe. It's a really cool idea and worth watching.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've seen that explored in other science fiction too, of the idea of Gestalt minds, of like a bunch of people, they just all plug themselves together with fast enough data transfer, and they cease to really be individuals.
Well, he does it even in the sequel, in Echopraxia.
Yes, he does in Echopraxia in the sequel to this. Let's not talk too much about Expraxia, but that is also where I get the date for Blindside is from Echopraxia, I think, in his notes for Echopraxia. So, but yes, Siri Keaton has undergone this this procedure to save his life because of his epilepsy as a child, and it's left him with a weird ability to both read people in a really startling kind of way, to sort of see, the way that he describes it is to see the hidden depths from just the little ripples on the surface, basically. But he's also terrible at processing or doing anything with his own emotions.
Yeah.
He's so fucking bad at it, and he knows it too. To the point where he feels like he has to describe his own emotional life as a Chinese room, which it isn't, but that's how he feels like he has to cope with like his life, basically. And the Chinese room is this whole philosophical argument, which is also kind of important to this book, I guess. That it has to do with whether or not computers can think, basically, and whether a complex enough mechanical system is the same thing as a conscious mind. And it's a weird argument. I think it's a pretty weak argument, but it's an interesting thought concept. So the idea is, if you have a person who's sitting inside a room and they have a big book in front of them with a bunch of symbols, the Chinese language. They don't know any Chinese, but they have a book with all these symbols and a book of rules that say, when you get a piece of paper slipped under the door of your room, reply with the following symbols, or the following, groups or sets of symbols, and write it on a piece of paper and stick it back under the door again. So the room, with the person inside working and the books and the cipher codes or whatever, the sets of how to respond to different stimulus can sort of be said, can that room and that process and that system be said to understand the Chinese language? And most people would probably be like, no.
Yeah, no more than I understand like C+ when I'm using a program that runs on C+. Like,
right,
it's just the interface.
So, that argument is kind of made to say that's why computers can't think, because the computer ultimately is not even a conscious person, sort of doing, because of course you take away the person in the Chinese room, then it's just the process. There's no thought there at all. There's nothing there. But there's a whole series of really complicated and formal philosophical and computational language kind of arguments around this thought. Jesus Christ.
Experiment?
Experiment. Thank you. That's the word I needed.
Yeah.
The edibles are kicking in.
Nice.
I think part of the problem is that we see it in a lot of these conversations as a binary. Like, does does the resident understand the system? Does the resident not understand the system? When like very few things are binaries, everything's a gradient. I mean, I've had conversations with people where they were probably not fully conscious. They were it's like, hey, how are you? I'm well, thank you. How are you? Like that conversation, you might not be interacting with somebody who's conscious when you're having that conversation. It's just a series of, it's like when someone says this, I respond with this. I've had arguments with that are just, it's the patterns playing out over and over again, and nobody's really engaging with what's happening.
Yeah. Me too.
But that's, we go through our lives like that. It's not like on or off. I mean, yes, I think there's an inflection point, and it's worth asking, can a system be conscious? Well, what is consciousness? But even, if we grant that there is something, that consciousness is a thing, it's worth asking the question. But I don't think it's an on-off thing.
Yeah. And for me, I think what's always been interesting about these kinds of philosophical arguments about the mind is that it's, a lot of them, I feel like, are just, I don't know. They just kind of spiral off into solipsism because we have no fucking clue how the brain works
or what we are
or what we're trying to describe right now.
Yeah. Consciousness is such a slippery thing. The mind is such a slippery thing.
It slips away from you for 8 hours a day and you disappear.
Yeah.
I still can't get over that one.
Well, I mean, the part of me that appears to be conscious goes away.
Right.
I really like the model of the self that involves the vast majority of what we could consider to be our mind is non-conscious. And there's this little island floating on top that's conscious. And that says most of the time just stands up there with its arms in the air being like, I'm the whole thing. And so at night, we go to sleep, or whenever we sleep, during the day, if you're a vampire. And, then the rest of the mind is still doing its thing. That little island sinks beneath the waves, maybe gets a view into the dreamscape.
Yeah.
Frightening.
Gotta hit vampires too, actually, in this book. There's not a lot of science fiction. If somebody had said, hey, there's a first contact story and it has vampires in it, I would have been like, okay, I'll put that on the bottom of the list.
Yeah, well, that is also kind of the thing that makes me think that this is one of the greatest first contact stories ever, is because it has vampires in it, and the vampires are super cool.
Some of the coolest.
And cool vampires always make me like stuff more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let me contrast Blindsight for just about 2 seconds by comparing it to another book I read that is also a first contact story that has vampires in it. It is called Out of the Dark by David Weber, and then he might have a co-author, because David Weber often has co-authors. David Weber writes really bad, kind of schlocky military sci-fi stories. I read a bunch of his novels, and I love them because they read like watching a game of Stellaris. It's like 45 battleships, 37 cruisers, and 17 battle cruisers entered the system, fighting against. Okay, yeah, like
right,
pages of that. So
it's a spreadsheet.
Yeah. So he wrote this story called Out of the Dark about an alien race that invades Earth, and this alien race. There's this whole complicated story about why they're invading Earth, but what it comes down to is they have a really weird technology base. They're one of the very few aggressive alien species in a galaxy of mostly herbivore and pacifistic kind of species. But even humans are so much more wildly aggressive than even these guys. That
something has to be done.
Something has to be done. Eventually, it's like they came prepared to invade like medieval technology Earth too, and they also got here, and it was the 21st century, and they were like, wait, what the fuck? How did these guys advance so fast? Because we're so smart and so cool that way. but nevertheless, we didn't have, orbital bombardment. So it kind of felt like this dude wrote himself into a corner because all this stuff happened. And then suddenly Dracula.
Huh?
Wait, what?
Of course, Dracula would want to have a say if there's orbital bombardment going on and aliens coming to.
I am. I guess who wouldn't?
Yeah.
I am 100% serious. This is what the first half of the book read like, and then suddenly Dracula was there, and Dracula was like, "I can't let the Earth be destroyed," so he turns a bunch of fucking soldiers and shit into more vampires. They ride on the outside of the invasion ships back up into space because they don't need to breathe because they're vampires, and they turn into mist to infiltrate the airlocks, and they murder all of the aliens in their spaceships, and they steal their technology and shit.
That's so great.
That's amazing.
Fantastic sounding.
It's like, I swear to God, this book has like the only way I can describe what he wrote was Dracula ex machina.
Wow.
Dracula from the machine. He wrote himself into a corner. He's like, man, I want to write this story about how this alien race invades the Earth, but I can't think of a plausible way how humans would be able to like avoid the problem of not having the orbital high ground and just getting bombarded into extinction. So I guess vampires.
That'll do it. That'll fix it right up.
It was like he had a die. It was like he rolled the die. It was like vampires, Superman, solar flares.
Yeah,
it's like vampires is cool.
Vampires is cool. Yeah. It may have been one of the worst books I've read. Wow. I can't believe I read the whole thing. I was like, boy. Why did I finish this? This is so bad.
Oh no.
But it's kind of hilarious to think of it and contrast it to Blindside, which is a different first contact story that has a vampire in it. This vampire is extremely cool, however.
So their minds also really, not to distract or depart for a moment, but it occurs to me that these characters are all very strong. They all kind of have it's almost comic booky because they all kind of have a set of abilities.
Yeah.
And
their niche power.
So the vampires in general, and also I also have a series. I listened to this book, so I have a few things I didn't quite catch. I got a few questions I'm going to ask you guys.
All right.
But their minds operate differently. They can visualize many different things at once and process many different threads of information.
Yeah,
which is why he's the captain.
Parallel processors.
Yeah,
hyper intelligent.
Yeah.
What I didn't catch
about vampires.
Yeah,
I've heard differing opinions, seen differing opinions online, about whether vampires are conscious in Watson's universe.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So what do you think?
I'm curious what your takes are.
I'm pretty sure they're not.
Yeah.
I didn't quite catch it.
I think he, and again, this is referencing echopraxia. He pretty much comes out and says in echopraxia that vampires are not conscious.
Walking computers.
Yeah. So I want to lay out the background for the vampires in this story. So in this story, it is theorized that vampires were real, but vampires were not anything supernatural. Vampires were a branch of hominids, just like the very famous ones like Neanderthal or Australopithecus or Homo erectus or whatever. They're if we looking at like human evolution, paleontology work that's been going on like in the last 20 years. There are a lot of different branches of the human tree that have, come and gone over the last, 10 million or so years.
And we figured out that it means man, not the same.
Yeah. Mixing up Latin and Greek, homo and homo. Yeah.
I was very confused.
Mean two different things. Yeah.
Excuse me.
So, right. So the theory is that about 1 million years ago or 500,000 years ago, something like that, these were a branch of hominids that kind of broke off from Homo sapiens, and they weren't that different, but they evolved to be different enough to become predators of other humans, because something in their brains stopped producing a protein that you need to live, and the only way they could get it was by killing and eating other human beings. So they evolved to become hyper intelligent because of the general theory that you need to be smart. If you're a predator, you need to be smarter than your prey animal. Otherwise, you're really not going to be catching it.
Right.
So these vampires hunting humans and presumably other hominids who were around at the time. I think there probably weren't a few others, but
that was a great explanation for why there are so few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's also,
there are plenty of reasons, like the ones in the world we live in.
So they survived by hunting and killing and eating other human beings. And sometimes because their prey groups were other humans, and humans take a while to have babies and reproduce, sometimes they'd run out of prey, so sometimes they'd hibernate.
Yep.
And they'd do the vampire thing. They'd kind of like fold up and go into the dirt and shrivel and look like a corpse for like 10 years or so, and wait, 10 or 15 years and wait for people to have babies, and then they'd come back. So they live a lot longer than regular people too. So basically they're awesome in every way. They're faster and smarter and cooler, and they love to eat your brains, except the weird parallel processing thing that goes on in their brain that makes them so smart has a problem parsing parallel intersecting 90-degree angles, across.
This was one of my questions.
As long as it covers like more than about like 90 degrees. And we're talking like a real cross. Like, you're not sticking your fingers together, because
that's not 90 degrees.
First of all, that's 90 degrees. And second of all, a vampire, like, the difference is seeing you can see that that's together. Your fingers are not like exactly 90 degrees.
Oh, intersecting. Yeah,
they have to intersect, and it has to cover like a significant portion. But like, if you build something like that out of wood, great.
Yeah, like a window, for instance.
And they have
window panes anyway.
Grand mal epilepsies and fall over and die because their brain can't process this.
But our guy takes it.
You don't see right angles like that, like in nature, very much. Things are fractal. Things are curved. Things are broken. And when you see things that are like quote unquote like right angles, like imagine like a tree in front of the horizon, at sunset or something like that, standing straight. But the tree is in the foreground, the horizon is in the background. And a vampire's brain understands the difference, and their visual centers understand, no, this is not all one thing going in two different directions. But that's how their brain sees right angles for some reason, and it makes them go into epileptic fits and die. So that is why they went extinct. Because once human beings figured out architecture,
architecture is antithetical to vampires.
Once vampires couldn't get close anymore. However, in the far future, well, not the very far future, but in 2099, by sorting through, fossil marrow and junk DNA of human beings who were closely related to vampires and stitching them together, it says in some side material that's not actually in the book, through unethical experiments on psychopaths and autistic people, basically, they were able to genetically resurrect vampires, kind of like, Jurassic Park style. Hooray, the vampires are back.
Yeah.
This was a
Never
great
goes poorly.
Let's make a bunch of guys who are smarter than us and like eating us. This sounds like a great fucking idea.
Yeah.
We can use them to fly
worried about
spaceships.
AI. Let's make predatory AIs.
Yeah.
In bodies.
Yeah. But no, we can keep them under control because of the crucifix glitch, as they call it, the thing that makes them die when they see right angles. They have to take a steady supply of drugs in order to suppress that. So as long as we can control the access to the drugs, we have them under our control. That seems like a perfect solution that I'm sure they will never think of a solution to because they have a 650 IQ.
Yeah.
Anti-Euclideans.
Yeah, anti-Euclideans.
I want to take some anti-Euclideans and see what they do. I guess I
Yeah.
have.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, Watts also comes out and says at the end of Exopraxia that the vampire, or the implication at the end of Blind Sight, spoiler alert for the very end of the book, jumping ahead, is that
this is full spoilers, obviously. Yeah.
At some point in the future, the vampires have basically risen up and killed all humans and taken over the world with the AI.
What are they going to eat?
They can grow.
Oh wait, they don't have the protein. Oh yeah,
they can grow cloned meat now. It's the future. They're not living in 500,000 BC anymore. They can just synthesize that shit.
Yeah.
And they don't have to build anything with crosses, man. They can build everything all round and smooth.
That'll be cool.
They'll build a Star Trek future.
Round vampire world.
It'll be like round. Yeah.
Round vampire planet.
There's a line very early on, I think like in like the first or second page of the book, where Siri Keaton is waking up from his cybernetic, cryogenic hibernation.
Yeah.
In this book, it is done by splicing vampire genes into the astronauts.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's partially mechanical, yes, but it is also done partially through biological means by splicing these,
enabling their bodies to do the hibernation trick, basically.
To do the similar hibernation tricks to the vampires. And there's a line that says nobody gets past Jupiter without being part vampire.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that shit. It made me think of a podcast we did a while ago where we were talking about vampires in space.
That's why I listened to this book. That's why we're talking about this now. We're talking about La Sombra going to space.
Yeah, that's right. The La Sombra.
They would love it the most.
They would love it the most.
They want to flee the oppressive light of the sun.
Sail the stars.
Sail their ships.
Yeah.
Live in the
abyss
great
itself.
Yeah, in the great darkness of the void. The void.
The void.
I mean, this book really makes you feel it when they talk about how they fly to Big Ben, about how much empty dark space there is, and they haven't even gone very far from the sun. Yeah. They get about a half light year away. And it's empty, but it's also full of stuff. It just happens that all that stuff happens to be really far away from each other. But like the setting for this book is what they call an OAFA object, right? OASA object? OA.
Yeah, how you pronounce it, I couldn't tell you, but OASA, I think is.
It's an acronym for something. It is something like is basically like a rogue planet. Rogue planets are planets that just they're small rocky bodies flying through the galaxy, or even intergalactic space, I guess. Not gravitationally bound to any star, not like Earth or Mars or Jupiter circling around Sol. There are quadrillions of these, just like in the Milky Way alone, ranging in size from real small to real big, because just of the way gravity works and the way star formation seems to work. People figure that the vast majority of planets that are created during when a star forms and all the gas forms around the star and planets are kind of coalescing, the vast majority of those get like thrown out into space. They don't stay hanging out around their stars. So there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of matter floating around there. And a lot of them take the form of big balls of hydrogen, because hydrogen is pretty common. But also, some other basic elements, carbon, oxygen, helium, all the basic stuff you find in a lot of places. So best way this takes place around a planet which they nicknamed Big Ben, which is about 10 times the mass of Jupiter and about twice as big.
Pretty big.
It is.
It looks like he probably based it off of this thing called OTS 44. I say this because it's discovered by 3 scientists, one of whose name was OASA, apparently in 1998, which is 11.5 times the mass of Jupiter. So real thing out there.
Yeah, I think they named those objects after that guy probably. So yeah,
that's a big object.
It is a big object, but it's not a brown dwarf. It's not even big enough to be like classed as a brown dwarf, which we would, you call like a really large mass of hydrogen that's like not quite big enough to create nuclear fusion and be called a star, but still kind of glows under its own sort of,
crushing pressure.
Yeah, crushing pressure and retained heat. Yeah, this is just like a really big Jupiter that got kicked out of its solar system and floating free. And in fact, because I was just rereading it, and I only got to reread like the first little bit, and it says like this, based on like the chemical structure, probably it's a Canis Minor object, which means it was part of like one of multiple dwarf galaxies that the Milky Way has eaten over the billions of years.
Oh.
This is an object from beyond the Milky Way, technically. It's a weird place, far away from the solar system, and they go here because in the story, a bunch of like something weird happens to Earth. A bunch of satellites appear over Earth, like 65,000 of them, in a perfect geometric grid, and Flash basically take a picture of Earth, boom, and then send some messages somewhere. So they follow the messages back. And they find this, to a source, which is this thing out in the Oort cloud, in the outer reaches of the solar system. And it's basically, as the story goes, like this thing is basically this alien thing, calls itself Rorschach. It's a joke because it's not sentient, it's just reflecting back on the sentient creatures, the conscious creatures looking at it. And it knows this too, in its own kind of weird way. So it's making that joke.
In the sense that it can know anything.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is when we really start talking about the Chinese room.
Yeah, and exactly. And this is exactly. This is why we talk about the Chinese room, because it comes to the understanding of the human beings who have flown out, and the vampire, who have flown out on this spaceship called Theseus, to meet Rorschach. That Rorschach is not a conscious entity. It is much smarter than them by orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
It is much more powerful and technologically advanced than them, but it does not have a conscious mind in any kind of way. It's just a series of processes, as we would understand it. And it calls in, the whole book calls into question the idea of like, what is consciousness and what the hell is it good for? And it posits that basically consciousness is a waste of processing power that our brain uses, and
potentially dangerous.
Potentially dangerous, in fact.
If I recall correctly, that's actually what Watts, like the premise when he started writing the book, was that he was going to make a science fiction book about what consciousness is actually good for. And it's it's like quote unquote downer, but it's such a kind of bleak perspective on consciousness because he just couldn't find anything.
Yeah. And the idea is these aliens are here to destroy humanity because they didn't like our TV.
Well, they did not like the way that our slogans and our bullshit and our language caused their minds, whatever it is, to run in loops with our bullshit. Yes. Our language was considered an attack.
Processing cycles, by giving them nonsense data.
Yeah, basically, this was their reasoning, if it can be called reasoning again.
I can't wait to talk about this again when we're talking about Metal Gear Solid 2, when we're talking about Death Stranding next time.
Yeah.
This is all, that's it. That's...
The aliens received broadcasts from humanity during the broadcast era. They analyzed them. They said, "Oh, this is from a conscious. This is from not conscious.
An intelligent.
This is from another intelligent creature. Let's analyze it." They analyze it. What does it say? It doesn't say anything. It's a fucking waste. Why is it here? If it's wasting our processing power, that means it's an attack. We're being attacked. Hit back.
For at least 7 years, I've been saying that language is absolutely the heart of the problem. Language itself.
Right, well, and speaking of the whole mind-to-mind communication thing, language is our shitty way of smashing our brain experiences into noises that we can, say to other primates and have them have some basic half-assed understanding of what's going on in our brain.
That tunnel we were talking about of a certain amount of bit rate that's allowed through to the bit rate of human language is unbearably low. Disastrously.
It's shit.
It's garbage. We're fucked. We gotta stop. We gotta move on from this whole thing.
If I was paying an ISP for the English language, I would want my money back.
On the one hand, I agree. Purely from like a mechanistic and results-based kind of point of view, the romantic in me is like, well, because it's such a low bandwidth, we get things like poetry. We get things like, we take these shortcuts where we have to create inference and we have to like sort of paint with language. God, I'm such an idiot with language.
These Rorschach guys hate everything you're talking about.
Yeah.
They think everything that you're talking about is monstrous, dangerous behavior.
Well, I mean, they rightly, maybe rightly assess that it's essentially masturbatory. It's like, it's not good for anything.
I love it.
Right. See, but here's the thing too, is that the ultimate criticism I have for that argument in this book is that human beings are social creatures who need to transmit various social elements and can only really do so through language. In a lot of cases,
it might be the highest baud communication channel we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, there's interpretive dance, which is pretty slow.
Right. And that's the thing too. Not just, I should actually say, not just language, but also artistic and cultural things like music and painting and whatever, because those things communicate certain things too.
Sure.
And for human beings, like it's interesting when you think of culture as a human tool.
Okay.
Also a tool that then affects back on its users.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings create cultures and use cultures because we need, we can't survive on our own. A human being by themselves, most human beings dumped naked in the woods by themselves are going to die. And that's not just, 21st century human beings. I think if you went back 500,000 years and grabbed a random human being and stuck them alone away from their support system, away from all their family and everything in the woods by themselves, they'd probably have a better chance of living than a 21st century person.
Maybe.
Tough time.
Yeah.
It is known.
Tough time.
Yeah.
Alone is still a hard thing to be for
Alone is a hard thing for a human being. You have to sleep. Bears are going to eat you while you sleep.
Scary.
Or something,
We're not wired for it.
Yeah. You're not.
I mean, you can't have the polar opposite where you're never alone. But if you're totally on your own, you're bone-aid.
Yeah. So culture, and the conscious mind, and things that the conscious mind do, especially in social settings, but also in non-social settings, I think provide some kind of.
I think we could have culture without consciousness. I still think it's required.
Possibly.
I think that, like, because if Sapiens is just the mirror, like reflecting on what's happening inside, you could still broadcast out without thinking about what's happening inside. I've met many people who do, but yeah, I really don't think it's necessary. I mean, in the same way that, like, if culture is a tool and all tools are for affecting change on what seems to be external to us, like, you can make a tool without knowing how you feel about it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, especially if you are, if your interior is just a Chinese room, sure you can.
Yeah.
I mean, you might invent a whole ring of barbed tentacles flying through space.
Again,
by accident. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what Rorschach looked like, a 90-kilometer wide wreath of barbs, like that fucking
the whole thing embodied the concept of torture. He says,
I love listening to that Wumpscut song when I'm reading the book. Wreath of Barbs.
Wreath of Barbaras.
Yeah. Wumpscut is a German industrial band. By band, I really mean just like one dude. But
is it quoted in the?
No, oh hell no! I don't think it's even.
They have a song / album called Wreath of Barbs.
There's a quote in this book that I'm gonna really in particular that I reacted to.
Oh, hit me! Unless you're burying the lead.
Yeah.
No. You want to know what it was?
Yeah, I want to know.
Is there a fucking Trevor Goodchild quote in this book? And is that?
Oh, yes, there is.
And is there a real Trevor Goodchild, or is that an Aeon Flux quote?
It is an Aeon Flux reference, 100%.
I don't even know what. Do you know what? Do you have it marked in your book?
Whatever kills you makes you stranger.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the one.
This is what the first thing in Aeon Flux that I thought about is. There's one episode where Trevor or somebody, or actually I think a guy named Claudius is involved. I'm going to bring up a guy named Claudius every podcast from now on. I think a guy named Claudius puts on this harness and it vibrates him into a world next door because he's on a different vibrational level. And that made me think of the Scramblers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Gosh, I have to go back and watch some of that old Aeon Flux. I have done the old Liquid Television stuff in a long time.
Yeah. Man, I've got MP4s or something of like the original, all the Aeon Flux shorts.
You want to take a real departure for a second?
But Aeon Flux is a great visual style to think of when reading Blindside. It's
bleak,
so weird and bleak and spindly and.
Actually, the way that he describes vampires, I wonder if he was looking at Aeon Flux's art style.
Man.
Might have been
the way they move and the way the limbs.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, they're all herky-jerky, but also quick and strangely graceful. Yeah.
So
vampires are Aeon Flux.
So Saint, I've been trying to tell Locke that he's got to watch Kindred the Embraced.
Oh yeah, that's the thing now. Is like, it's bad. It's so bad, dude.
I believe that. That's my major stumbling block.
No, but that's the thing. It's like you watch.
I have it queued up, Koya. I do. It's on my YouTube. Watch later.
Yeah. You watch it knowing that it's bad. You watch it to laugh at it, and you watch it knowing that some of the people are in it. Like one of the bozo cops is Dokes from Dexter. Surprise, motherfucker. That guy. He's in Kindred the Embraced, man. As a cop. It's the best. When I realized who it was, I was like, surprise, motherfucker.
There's just so much good shit in that show.
Oh, man.
Good people doing good shit.
You pour out a glass of whiskey, get a joint, something, watch it to laugh at it.
It's like a game of Vampire the Masquerade. It's like they acted very poorly with very poor sets and no budget. They acted out a game of Vampire the Masquerade.
If I don't try to imagine that it's actually taking place in the world of darkness, but I imagine that it's a LARP being run.
That's exactly what it is.
That's
That's
exactly
what I will do.
Oh my God, it's
I
exactly
am
what it
watching a
is.
LARP, not vampires. That's
It really-
amazing. Okay, now I'll
like-
do it. Now
You're
I
watching-
have a lens.
Okay,
You're watching LARP that
yeah.
I'm
Aaron
watching
Spelling.
Origins, 1998 spelling edition.
Yeah, you're watching Aaron Spelling's LARP from 1998.
Oh my god. Okay, now I'm pumped. Now I'm excited to see it.
It's a special, like, but rainy day, really. And I'm not,
Yep.
I'm never in a hurry. You don't have any homework to do, but you got you're gonna have to watch it. You are.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for.
Absolutely.
I guess
you know what? I would
go ahead.
totally be down to do a series of these on Kindred the Embrace.
Oh my
We
gosh,
talked about that. We
we
talked
episode
did.
one,
What do you
did
think
episode
about
two.
that, Saint? What do you think about?
I would do it.
to do it because I haven't rewatched it actually in a little while. I used to rewatch it. I used to rewatch it with, Locke. You remember?
Yeah,
my
when we
New
lived
York
together?
City, yeah, when we lived together, my New York City vampire crowd. That was a common thing to when we were hanging out. This is like before we had kids and
Sure.
could hang out until 2 a.m. on random nights and drink a lot. But you'd throw on Kindred the Embrace to laugh at it. So I haven't really watched it much since then. But I would be down to do a few episodes on Kindred the Embraced.
Cool.
I don't think we should do like an episode.
Not one per episode. Yeah.
Right.
That
We
might
can
be a slog.
do like 2 or 3 episodes per
Yeah.
podcast or something like that.
Great. I love it. I love it.
All right.
love it.
There was such a good Tumblr site, and it's gone now because they took their page down in protest during the great Tumblr porn purge.
Yeah.
Right.
They had these hilarious like meme recaps of all of the Kindred the Embraced episodes.
Oh man.
They were just so good. Oh, I miss those.
The show's
I
really
would
good.
just
It's just
sometimes
so
I would just
90s.
call those up and look at them and laugh at them.
Yeah.
Back to Blindside though.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't
So,
want
yeah.
to. Yeah.
I don't think not to like get down into it, but the
Sure.
question that I had earlier about whether vampires are conscious or not, I think it's a weird idea based, like, if you combine it with where their evolution is supposed to have come from. Like, okay, so did they become non-conscious as they were hunting humans, or were neither of the were humans not conscious when they split off and we developed consciousness later? Like, if they don't have it now, like what the? I mean, I don't think it's explored in I don't remember Echopraxia. I don't think it's explored.
no,
But
I
That's a
don't-
weird set of ideas. I mean, I could understand.
The same questions are asked, I think, but no answers.
Interesting. Okay.
No answers.
Because he says that like empathy is one of the first things that like starts to go, and it's like, so if stuff is getting stripped out of their experience, as generations cycle through. Anyway, just a weird thing to think about.
Yeah, but then that's the funny thing too, because I don't think empathy is necessarily related to consciousness, because other social animals, exhibit empathy.
No, I don't mean it is in terms of a connection, just in terms of pieces of the human experience getting stripped out in general.
Anyway, yeah, I have to be honest and still say it is difficult for me to wrap my mind around the idea of a non-conscious, sentient, advanced.
It's
sentient.
a really weird idea.
It's a really weird idea. Yeah, and you like basically the way I have to imagine it is that it's like, and I think that's why he uses that Chinese room thought experiment, so much, because that's an easy way for people to kind of get like the basic concept.
What's happening? Yeah, that it's machinery.
Yeah.
I think sleepwalking is a great metaphor too. I mean, the TV sleepwalking is like stumbling around, sometimes more complicated, but like people have done all kinds of. There was
People cook meals and eat them all the time.
There was a person who got I mean, again, this is me. I may be misremembering it, but my recollection is that there is a court case in which someone was adjudicated, like, where they were judged innocent because they had killed a person while they were asleep.
They made a movie about that.
Oh, really?
Might have been a real case. The movie might be called Placebo or some kind of pharmaceutical term, something like that.
We do all kinds of stuff.
There is a movie based on that premise.
Yeah.
Like I've had conversations with people who were asleep.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Sleepwalking is weird, man. Sleepwalking is funny,
Yeah.
and I've I had a friend who used to sleepwalk sometimes when he was a teenager and he was a kid. He told me some wild stories. Like he told me,
like, wait, was it me? Do I not know this?
no, it's not you. But
Okay.
I had a friend who told me like one time his mom watched him come downstairs, come into the kitchen, take a knife out of the kitchen, like draw it across his hand a couple of times, like he was cutting his hand, except he didn't actually manage to cut his hand, put the knife away, and then walk back upstairs.
I.e.
And she was like, before she could like stop him, and he was probably like, I think he was probably like 13 or 14 at the time or something like that. So like,
Right.
You're big enough to reach the knives. You're not like a 6-year-old kid.
Right.
But also as, 13, 14, you understand not to fucking go around stabbing yourself or playing with knives.
Most of us.
Most of the time. I think we played with some swords, but that was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an idea. I had a thought about the Chinese room since we are touching on it now. And it has to do with Siri Keaton and actually what the title of the book is, which we have not really even actually discussed, which is the idea that maybe when your eyes are not connected, your brain, or when you are not consciously processing or receiving the information from your eyes, your brain that controls your motor functions might still be able to catch a baseball thrown to you, even though you think that you are blind. And it elaborates on that more, but the Chinese room is almost like processing language blind, if you want to think about it that way. Like your brain might process the visual information even though you are blind. And what Siri is doing with his Chinese room is he is processing empathy blind. Without empathy, he is organizing and recording for himself and his reports the internal workings and emotions of everyone he sees, because he has become so adept at processing it without experiencing it. So we've got a lot of layers of...
That's a really cool way to structure that thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got a lot of Chinese rooms going on.
Yeah, and the story layers them, like, and it ultimately
this book is so fucking good.
Yeah, ultimately it's not really too subtle. It ultimately kind of beats you over the head with the fact that it's kind of bleak, all the things that human beings think are great and awesome about themselves, the wonderful things that we regard as great, like our social structures, our art, our culture, our literature, are all worthless and pointless.
This is a doomer book for doomers.
Just ultimately a waste of energy and resources that should be being used to, I guess, further our expansion into the galaxy or something.
Well, actually, no, I think the logical thing to do with people who think and talk like us is get rid of them, is what is determined.
Yeah, actually.
Get chucked.
Nicely, stick them into a nice box where they think they're in heaven until they die naturally. You don't actually have to, line them up against the wall if they willingly march into the...
It's less resource intensive to just let them do it, put themselves into quote unquote heaven, which is we should mention, if anybody's not familiar. So heaven in the book is a specific thing. It's basically a mind upload where the person in the mind upload scenario can sort of create their own universe that they're inhabiting.
This has all happened before, and it will all...
Specifically, it's not a mind upload because they don't have mind uploading yet.
That's true, right? Their brains in jars.
Their brains in jars. Well, that's a rumor. The rumor
is that eventually they carve the bodies up, maybe.
Yeah, or
they do. They do.
If not, if not, it's Matrix style. They're in like a
tubes of
style.
Well, and their spare CPU cycles of their brains get used for all kinds of other stuff.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that's the.
But yeah, so when
that's-
we're saying that people send themselves to heaven, it's not a euphemism. It's
yeah,
an actual scenario.
heaven is a place like in Black Mirror.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
or that Madonna song.
yeah, and it's a VR where you get whatever you want, or maybe whatever the AI thinks you actually need. Because it's
Well, his mom specifically seems not to be getting what she needs.
perhaps maybe the AI doesn't care if you get what you need. Maybe the AI thinks what you need is not to be in here.
Well, although he
Here
mentions
you are,
that
so.
the thing that his mom, what he infers from his mother's topology, as he would put it, is
Right.
that the thing that she doesn't like is that people might not have a perfect opinion of her, like she's a terrible narcissist.
Right.
And so in order for her to have the fantasy she wants, no one else can exist. Because if they exist, then they might have a bad opinion of her, and that's not acceptable.
Right. But keeping in mind that Siri Keaton is a unreliable narrator and he hates his mother.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's inclined to think the worst of her pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, from the description of his relationship with her, like she wasn't exactly a good mom. But again, it's from his point of view.
Which is weird.
We don't have her point of view.
Yeah, the only other data set we can pull from is what he tells us about his dad's point of view, who seems to be obsessed with her.
Right. Or if you want to dig into the sequel, a little bit of what his dad thinks. And this is, or what his because his father's in the sequel. This is a fairly major character, but I think he says one or two things about that, but he doesn't actually talk. I don't think he even talks about it very much in the sequel. But it's a major point in this is that a large number of human beings elect to go to heaven.
Yeah.
And again, it's basically like this is the equivalent of like in a experiment with the rats who have like the pressure, the pleasure center of their brains wired to a little button, and they just choose to just start pushing that button and do nothing else until they die.
Yep.
Right.
That's kind of what it is. And I mean, imagine nowadays I was talking with somebody about like AI generated content, AI generated movies, AI generated TV shows, AI generated books and everything. It's coming. You say, AI, please write me a 10-book epic novel, a series of novels to read in George R. R. Martin style, but about a group of plucky adventurers in the Dragonlance universe, and it will spit that shit out for you, and you'll read it. This is what heaven in Blindside is, except the AI are much better than the AI that we have in the world in 2023. These AI have IQ 270,000 billion. They don't think like us, but they can think of stuff that will keep us perfectly entertained. And
we're not that complicated.
Yeah, and they can make these AI universes, and basically, it doesn't say anything about the economics of it, but apparently you can just be like, yeah, I'm good, I want to go there. It doesn't sound like anyone's paying for it.
Oh, I think you pay for it with your brain processes.
Cycles.
Your brain cycles are running government machinery. Yeah. And the back of your brain is firing nuclear missiles.
It's pretty clearly a post-scarcity universe, too.
Yeah. So,
that's true. They talk about people not having to work.
That's true. They have like antimatter matter cracking or something. They can create matter from antimatter and quantum blueprints out of the void.
Basically print anything they want.
Yeah, so that's true.
There's only 2 books in this fucking universe. This guy put a lot of goddamn thought into this.
Yeah,
there's a lot of ancillary stuff. I mean, he's got like fake YouTube presentations made by the companies that were developing vampires.
That's cool.
He's got all kinds of talks he's given. There's some. I think there's a short story in there, isn't there? Oh yeah, the back is awesome.
Like, what is it? Like 10 pages of this book is all notes. Echopraxia has even more notes. Echopraxia, like the back, like 30 pages of Exopraxia is all notes. So he just, with like a big, just like view into his world building. So Yeah, this is a bleak ass world. This is a human contact. Humans meet aliens, but it doesn't really matter because humans are going to be extinct in about 10 or 20 years anyway, and the Earth is going to be inherited by the vampires and the AIs.
All right.
And the fuck of it is, the vast majority of the human race went extinct willingly.
Yep. And that doesn't even sound unlikely to me.
Yeah. On a bad day, I think a lot of people would be like, yeah.
Yeah, put me in there.
A lot of people I know are like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
I
did not understand why the vampire attacked Siri Keaton towards the end of the book. I didn't understand the point that was made during and what was that whole sequence and Siri hiding.
My interpretation of it was that Sarasti had figured out essentially like how Siri would respond to it.
Okay.
And that he wanted to cause a specific set of outcomes in Siri's psyche and behaviors to be output from said psyche. And he's like, by doing this thing, he will think these things and feel these things and then behave in this way, which is what I need. But he might have also just been having some fun.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I think that there could have been part of it.
That is also how I understand it too, is that Juka Sarasti looks at Siri Keaton and sees a piece of meat with a program, and it's a complex program because he's a human being, and it's taken some time, but has eventually broken down that program, and he's figured out what he needs to do with Siri Keaton to make him, do what he needs to do in this very extreme situation that they're in.
Yeah.
Basically fighting an alien monster that's 1 million years more technologically advanced than they are. And he realized, and he's like, what I need to do to win against this alien monster.
Win.
It all involves Siri, win, quote unquote, involves Siri Keaton. And in order for me to get Siri Keaton to do what I need to do, I'm going to need to beat the shit out of him. And you know what? I'm going to enjoy that.
Okay, yeah. A far-fetched plan, yeah. I guess the Theseus is not an organic creature?
No.
Well, Theseus is their ship.
No, I know, but I mean, the way it's described and having a spine and things growing off of it, and canals and tubes, and I was sort of halfway through. I was like, "This is probably a machine," but
it's a machine, but it is a machine that is in many ways alive because it talks about the quantical AI core or whatever.
Right, yeah.
If that's the adjective they use, quantical AI. It's like a quantum computer or what. I guess like what we think of as a quantum computer, like except advanced another like 80 years, and it's intelligent, it's smarter than any of them, it's faster than any of them, but it still needs human beings in a certain way. It's this weird kind of. This is not the only science fiction place I've seen it either, but it is an interesting thought kind of thing where it's kind of like the super intelligent AIs and the vampires and stuff don't exactly need human beings.
Yeah.
But human beings can still actually be useful, even though they're not hyper intelligent or hyper, or omni, competent or whatever. Like they can still have their uses. The only real time that the Theseus, this ship, which is, has this particular intelligence, and is really running the show, is in command. Eventually, you think, Juka Sarasti is kind of running the show because he's giving the commands, he's giving the orders, he's like, do this, do that. Ultimately, we realize like most of these decisions or all of these decisions are actually coming from the captain.
Yep.
What they call the AI of the ship, the captain.
The people who set up the mission just thought people would be more comfortable taking orders from a vampire.
Yeah.
I would.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
Also, you're less likely to get a mutiny if your captain is
dangerous,
incredibly strong and fast psychopath over an AI.
Imagine taking orders from some fucking AI robot with too many fucking fingers on every hand and a mouth full of hundreds of teeth.
I'd much rather follow Dracula around.
Zamisi, yeah. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah,
Into space,
yes. The blindside vampires are Zamisi.
Yeah.
These guys make the Sabbat look like a bunch of tame-ass motherfuckers.
Do they ever have to sleep in dirt? Is that ever talked about?
No. Somebody makes a joke about it. Somebody makes a joke about it on like the second page or the third page again, because I was just reading the beginning of it.
Hey, what are some of the things that you've made notes of in your hard copy?
I realized as I was looking at my hard copy, these are all the notes that I was making for about vampire related stuff. Whenever
for that game.
There's a role playing game called Night's Black Agents.
Okay,
that was cool.
It is a by Kenneth Haidt, who I think was also involved in V5. Kenneth Haidt is awesome.
Awesome.
Anyway, Night's Black Agents is a game about playing super spies hunting vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, the way I pitched it to Locke, who was in the game, and his ex and our friend Josh was, I'm like, imagine if Jason Bourne, James Bond, and Black Widow teamed up to take down Dracula.
Okay. Yeah, fuck yeah.
And it's a cool game, and it's the vampire design is very modular. The way it's designed, so you can play vampires a bunch of different ways. So you can design it so that the vampires are sort of supernatural, or you can design it so that they're sort of like biological and scientific, or maybe they're like weird extra-dimensional monsters, like Necroscope, Ryan Lumley thing, or maybe they're resurrected hominids from 1,000,000 years ago.
All right. Okay. Really?
I was gonna do a Vampire Hunters game where the vampires were blindside vampires. I was gonna tone them down a little because obviously, if they're all super intelligent, they can figure out anything that you can do immediately and instantly and perfectly counter it. That wouldn't be a very fun game.
Right.
But
yeah.
But yeah. This book is cool too because it does proceed with a lot of what you would call sort of like space travel or first contact story cliches or tropes. It talks about like the ship. It talks about like the design of the ship and like the science of how it moves and gets around, and it talks about when they get to Rorschach, this creature, this thing that talks to them but doesn't really say anything.
Yeah,
it's this sort of non-conscious thing. It's like talking to a chatbot. Honestly, it seems like the conversations that they have in this book, I'm like, we have better chatbots now in 2023.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Peter Watts, who wrote this.
Oh yeah.
Well, keep in mind this is a chatbot potentially not even from this galaxy trying to speak English at us too. Okay, give Rorschach a break.
Yeah. Yeah, 2006. He wrote this in 2006. Yeah,
that was we were not looking at AI hell right in the face yet in 2006.
No, we're getting there now. I don't even think we're there yet. Just this is like,
oh yeah, this is the
what we see now in the world in the news.
Basically, this is the point where we can feel the gravel sliding under our bare feet on the edge of the cliff, and we're just looking over that edge and going, "Wow, that's a long way down."
It's sliding from vibrations of approaching tanks and tyrannosaurs.
I mean, like. Right now, all of the AI stuff, not all of it, but a lot of the really interesting and creepy AI things that we're getting to experience, Stable Diffusion and Night Cafe and ChatGPT, it's like we feed the information into it and we get some entertainment, quote unquote, back out of it. and there's some stuff where they're replacing certain types of jobs with these things and stuff like that, but they haven't really like unleashed the full amount of information that's available about a person used it to target that person. Like right now it's like, oh, I might get a targeted ad for a sleeping bag on Amazon or something if I've been looking for tents. But maybe he's going to go camping.
I know so many people who talk about how stupid targeted ads are all the time.
Not for long.
Not for long. I got a buddy who loves spending time on Twitter and Facebook yelling at right-wing nut jobs. What kind of ads does he get on his Facebook? Guns. MAGA shit. Not because he wants it, but because he's interacting with these people saying, you guys are fucking idiots, I hate you, blah, 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 blah.
That's karma for even interacting.
Yeah.
You get advertising for guns that you don't like to see.
Yeah.
I watched this documentary about... I'm sorry I talk about the flat earth so much. I watched this documentary about the flat earth and there was this guy in it going, because of my faith and belief in the flat earth, my friends stopped talking to me, my family stopped talking to me, and I kept trying to tell people about the flat earth, but eventually everybody stopped talking to me, and I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I guess you probably should have stopped telling people.
Did you infer anything from that?
There's not a pattern here that you're doing.
What's that stupid phrase from Far Cry 3? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing.
Oh, right. There you go. Yeah.
I also really like not to call anybody in particular an asshole or anything, but like if you get up and you go out in the morning and you meet an asshole, that sucks.
Yeah.
And if you meet 2 assholes in a day, man, that really sucks. But if everybody you meet is an asshole, you might want to look in the mirror when you wake up.
There's
There's the one through line on all of this.
Yeah. There's so many phrases, so many sayings like that. It's like the one common denominator in all your bad relationships is you.
Right. There you go.
All of that. But yeah. Man, we've gotten a little far afield.
Well, Siri has some bad relationships. We could use that as a back end. Siri and Chelsea don't do so well.
Siri has a terrible relationship with Chelsea. His relationship with Chelsea is so cringy.
She's kind of a weirdo, honestly.
She's kind of a weirdo too. And again, referencing near the beginning of the book, because I was near the beginning of the book, but there's a part where he tells one of the gang, I think he's talking to Susan James and her group of alters.
We haven't talked about the gang, have we?
Yeah, we'll talk. Let's talk about the characters in a minute. But he's talking to the gang and he's telling them like about he's there like, oh, you had a girlfriend, and he's like, yeah, and he's he tells them about a funny quote unquote joke that he told about game theory and your birthday, and he's like, you told your girlfriend this, and she's like, he's like, yeah, and she's like, and you still had a girlfriend after? Because I would have dumped your ass.
Yeah. Poor Siri. Poor Chelsea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I think they would have had a rough relationship even outside of the context of the world in which they live.
Yeah.
I mean, a world in which, like, at one point, she's upset at Siri for creating basically an AI version of her to have VR sex with.
He doesn't get it.
He doesn't get it. He's like, why is
he's like
based on her? Why is she upset?
Yeah. He's like, literally everyone I know does this.
Yeah.
Well, and also like most of the people he knows it's like having sex with your body in real space.
Weird.
That's how complicated and not optimal. And whereas Chelsea is like, that's the thing to do.
She's like, I'm very
weirdo.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
What's her job? What'd she do?
She was I was going to say she's a neural tweaker, but basically she can edit. Yeah, she can take she can tweak your responses she can edit memories out. She can tweak your responses to old traumas.
Your pathways. She can
rewire your neural pathways to make you happy or make you not remember that argument your parents had or whatever. But
That's
because computers got so good at
pretty
that,
cool.
she's out of a job as well.
Damn.
Computers
Tries
take
it on
all
Siri. It
jobs.
does not work out so well.
Yes, he's
What
very
do
resistant.
you think? Do you think it would be a good idea to just edit out trauma out of a human pathway?
There's a really good book called The Body Keeps the Score, about
I think I've
that.
heard of that.
So I would
I think
strongly recommend.
I think it's questionable. I think there's something to be said for reducing the severity of the recall of traumatic memories.
Okay.
Right.
Because that is a problem that people with traumatic
CBT.
memories really struggled with. Yeah, exactly. And there are different ways to do that. And there are potentially, direct, neural or chemical or whatever ways to do that. In cases of bad trauma, people talk about that. That's kind of, therapies that people get nowadays. There are certain, medications and stuff that help reduce the severity of your anxiety and your ability to recall traumatic memories. But yeah, I think ultimately saying just like forgetting them completely is probably a bad idea.
Didn't work out for Jim Carrey.
Yeah, but like at the same time, I think this has come up in our podcast a bunch. Kuya is the fallibility of our memory anyway.
Yeah.
Our memories are so fucked up half the time anyway. Like
our memories are an
impressionist
painting
of
what happened. They are not a record.
Yeah.
The experience of human consciousness is so dumb.
It's so dumb.
It's the only game in town.
Come on.
It's so crappy. It's so analog and clunky. It's just like, God.
I've been, as difficult as it has been over the years. I feel like net positive, and I also think that my attitude, my optimism, and my attitude that life is net positive is really just a trick that I'm playing on myself. It's like I simultaneously believe the terrible, pessimistic, deterministic thing and the romantic, beautiful thing.
There you go.
Which just goes to prove your point that it's a big mess in the head.
That's quantum computing, what you're describing.
Yeah, I believe value judgments are all in the mind and completely subjective.
Well, what isn't all in the mind?
So
point to something that is not in the mind.
So deciding whether something all good or whether or not something is all good or all bad is just,
well, sure, everything's a gradient.
Yeah,
there are no binaries, but still we have to figure out what we think of things. Where do we sit on that scale? Or at least that's, I think, how we experience meaning, is those gradients and how they intersect.
Anyway, this book, a book about weird tentacle monsters in outer space, makes you think about all this shit.
Mostly. We didn't even talk about the tentacle monsters.
We didn't even talk about the tentacle
monsters. When I was talking about shadow monsters, shadow people, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, are you alone in the room?
Yeah.
Because the Scramblers is the name of the... Well, we don't know if they're aliens. We don't know if they're aliens or if they're their version of a hammer. It appears to be biological.
Biological-ish.
In that it replicates a creature that appears
and it's squishy.
to live.
It has proteins.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But it also can't exist outside of a specialized environment, namely the interior of Rorschach.
Right.
So is it
any
a part
more
of
than a salmon can? Well, is a salmon a part of the stream?
Exactly.
We don't know. I mean, I think we can be pretty clear on the salmon, but
I don't know. You want to talk about the stream? You say,
but the stream is it a network of?
Yeah, exactly. You say,
you
say, what's the definition of stream? Is it just the water? Is it? Are you actually
the algae? Is it the rocks? Is it the
ecosystem?
If I'm talking to you about the context of the stream and of using it as a resource of let's go down to the stream. I'm hungry. I'm obviously talking about the fucking salmon in the stream. I'm not talking about the water.
What if it's a stream of consciousness, bro?
Stream of data. The primal data stream that we will all return to.
Yeah.
Till all are one.
I think this has all happened before and it will all happen again. I think we are 15 layers deep in a matrix that recycles us into computational power over and over again while bangs get big and time runs in a loop. And good news, the universe is shaped like a donut.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It seems as likely to me as, any of the other explanations.
Or we go down into the mycelium and become fungus gods.
Ooh.
Well,
I'd be
it's hard
okay
to
with
pass up a good
being a fungus god.
mycelium.
Yeah, I'd be okay with being a fungus god.
You mentioned we hadn't talked about the characters. I would love to.
Yeah. So
dig into
there's
some of these.
Well, I think specifically I was saying we haven't talked about the one character that is called the gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about several of the characters.
We've talked about Siri and Yuka and
we've not talked about
the rest of the crew.
yeah.
We've not talked about the rest of the post-humans.
Yeah.
So they call them, well, they sort of jokingly, and I think, but also kind of seriously call themselves post-humans because the people who are crewing the Theseus are by any early 21st century measure not human anymore. Most of them are packed with implants, cybernetic implants, chemical drugs and cocktails, and they have extensively modified.
They're all taking anti-libidos.
Their bodies and minds. They're all taking anti-libidos because they don't want to be worried about fucking while they're busy trying to talk to the aliens. The aliens don't want to see that shit.
Yeah, let's not embarrass
the aliens
ourselves.
want to see that shit,
and we don't want them to.
You don't show the aliens that shit on the first date.
That's just not how you show up. You don't show up being like, "Here's how we fuck."
Yeah, I mean, I know we sent you that risque photo on the Voyager,
but you don't just walk up to the table and sort of slap down. This is what I've got. What have you got?
Let's check it. Let's put it all out. Let's check it out.
Does this interface in any way with what you've got? I don't know.
Because that's what we really need to know.
That's the Mass Effect version.
How's this?
Of space
yeah,
travel.
right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, Mass Effect. Yeah, we'll bang.
Which
Do
parts
you have
go
any
together?
holes or rods?
Yeah, whatever's happening.
Anyway.
There's tentacles. Yeah. What's happening at the back of your head?
Commander Shepard would have been so ill-suited to meet Rorschach.
Boy, that would be a real. That would be. Let's get in.
This is my favorite consciousness on the Citadel.
Oh man,
the gang is super cool.
Yeah, the gang. So there's the gang, who is Susan James is the mother or the first of the gang. So basically, the gang is a super interesting concept where Watts imagines dissociative identity disorder not as a disorder, but as a deliberately done thing to a person's
Parallel processing.
A form of parallel processing, except it's not really parallel because they can't all operate at once.
But they do, though. There's a thing that Cruncher says after they go into Rorschach, where Juka pulls them up one by one after that sphincter thing closes one of them off.
Yeah.
And Juka's like, "What did you see? What did you see?" And Cruncher's like, "Mom sent me some data to look at. I'm busy. I'm still looking at it. Leave me alone." So they actually do stuff, but they can't drive the body all at once.
Okay, no wait, you're right. And to the appearance of somebody interacting with them, it's usually they can only interact with one person at a time usually. But she's got 4 personalities down there herself, or perhaps more. Herself, an identity called Cruncher, which is a sort of mathematical savant.
Michelle and Sasha.
Michelle and Sasha, and they're all 4 different things. They're all 4 different sort of social or psychological or sort of linguistic processing purposes because she's a linguist.
She's here to talk to the Chinese room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Michelle is synesthetic. Well, I don't know what you would call it if you experience synesthesia.
Yeah, she's a synesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is something that it's interesting because she talks about how people view dissociative identity disorder, and she's like, it's now the now of this story is like you can do it in a way that doesn't involve it doesn't involve like horrible trauma, because most of the people who experienced this disorder in the real world, modern times, do it as a result of like terrible trauma and a way of dealing with that trauma. They create an identity to take that trauma for them, or to like there's all kinds of things like, so, but this is done on purpose to create other identities to kind of be part of your family, but inside your head. She views these other personalities as like her children, but also like as herself in like a weird way.
Yep. They are not alters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't call them that, says Sasha.
Yeah. These are like the children of her mind. She just can't release them into another body because that's not possible yet with the technology they have. Maybe she doesn't want to, but that's kind of the concept,
I was just trying to find a reference for it, but I can't dig it up. That I've seen noted that people say that Rorschach made some edits and created a fifth inside of James. And I have it's been like 10 years since I've read this, and I'm only halfway through now.
That's the thing that happens at the end, because James she goes nuts.
Yeah.
And there's it basically says it. It says it, or it
implies it heavily.
Yeah, that it's like, oh, okay, this is what happens. Is Rorschach through the mental because they keep going inside Rorschach to explore,
just marinating in its radioactive electromagnetic fields.
Yeah, and it is
and getting tumors cut out of them afterwards.
Yeah, it is an extraordinarily unhealthy environment.
With their ghoulish powers.
It's like descending into a fusion reactor. It's like it's just glowing in radiation and like super powerful electrical fields, because that's how it powers itself and that's how it powers its scramblers.
They're losing contact with their senses. They're hallucinating. They can't see the scramblers until they can.
Yeah, these are things.
Terrible shit.
These are real things that happen to human minds, human brains too, when subjected to electrical, currents in various ways and places. So, this is all based on real science of the human mind. Yeah, and it's basically Rorschach using the electrical fields edited a fifth into her, basically, and use it as a fifth column.
Yeah.
Use it as an infiltrator to do damage inside the inside of Theseus.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from the gang, Susan James, there's Amanda Bates. She's the soldier.
Robot lady.
Her backstory is super fun.
Not a robot lady, a commander of robots. A lady with many robots.
The implication too, though, is she is also packed with implants.
Yeah.
And probably like military cyborg implants. So she's she's not she
has the most whole original human brain among the bunch.
Yes, that's true. I think
maybe the first Dr. Spatzler.
Yeah, I think the image I have of her involve a lot of implants that are not like brain implants like the rest of these people so much as they are like war fighting implants.
Deus Ex.
Yeah, body modification.
Yeah,
I
shooting
didn't ask for this.
nanite bombs out of your spine and shit.
Yeah. Like Cyrax. There's the guy who has... There's Spindle, and the guy who has removed all of his sensory organs.
Yeah,
and smokes cigarettes.
Cunningham, I think, is the one whose face...
the second one, yeah.
Yeah.
He smokes cigarettes, but all of
his face was an accident, but yeah.
Yeah, Spindle is a biologist, and he's...
Sorry for talking about two different people at the same time.
He's wired all of his senses into these cybernetic implants. Yeah, he's basically.
Well, that's the second guy. That's the second guy.
Wait, no, the second guy. The first guy's done something similar to that too, but different.
I think Spindle. Is it Spindel? Spinzel?
It's one of the Spinzel, something like
that's
that.
That's the guy I said was the first Doctor that seems mostly human. He's replaced by a guy who has torn off all his eyeballs and stuff, but still walks around smoking cigarettes, but his head is full of hardware and all of his sensory organs are gone. Yes,
Spindle's a funny one because he's like he's tampered with his body to such a degree. Like he's got all kinds of like he has biofeedback gloves so that he could feel. No, Spindle has the gloves.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that gets drilled with the laser.
Right. Okay. All right. I'll let you guys go now. Okay. Sorry.
So he has like all this stuff that's like, well, it's a dichotomy because Siri says that Spindle treats him with the most humanity of anyone of the crew. Yeah. Like he's like he wasn't a friend, but he was nice to me.
Yep.
But from like a mechanical point of view, he's like very distributed across the ship, whereas Cunningham is like super cold.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's more. I don't remember, but I think he's more biologically. From the outside, he seems more human, although he doesn't have any facial affect because of like some nerves that got screwed up when he was doing his stuff.
Exactly. Spindle is described as having like a bunch of like visible implants, as having like these tics and like these like twitches because he's rewired his nervous system to these machines. Because they've all done that. They've all like.
There's a point where he takes a blood sample from Siri, and then he's like basically describing how it tastes. Not like how does the blood taste, like if you taste blood, but he's like, oh, there's this much plasma and there's this many platelets or whatever. He's experiencing it as taste sensory data.
They all have some kind of like an internal HUD or data transfer between each other.
Consensus.
They all have the consensus. They all have the basic. This is what I consider now in almost any science fiction I read, quote unquote, the basic implant set, which is a cell phone in your eye.
Yep.
You can make calls, you can communicate, you can get on the internet,
and
it all throws everything up on a screen in your HUD in your vision. You can do AR, you can do augmented reality, it's all in your mind, it's all in your brain. It's Google Glasses, it's your phone, it's everything except you don't have to carry it. It's all just implanted in your head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I call the basic sci-fi implant nowadays.
Yeah, it's the basic package.
Because it's in everything. I see it in like so much science fiction nowadays.
Well, the second it came out, it would be a thing that everybody had.
Yeah.
You guys watch much Futurama?
No.
You're all aware of that Futurama meme, "Take my money."
Yes.
That is from an episode where they're making fun of the iPhone, and they call it the I, as an eyeball phone.
Yeah.
And it's
EYE.
And it looks like a little Bluetooth thing, except you shove it right in your fucking eyeball. And because it's Futurama, and it's and that's what it does.
I'll take two.
Just in your brain.
Let me tell you, when
that's the joke too. Is I'll take two.
I know that like people talking about their dreams is generally extremely boring, and so I don't want to go on length. But
go for it.
I was about like, I'm going to do it anyway. When I was about 16, I had a dream that I had my eyes replaced with like augmentation eyes that had like better, they could see infrared, they could zoom, they could take photos, they had all this crazy stuff. And then, the dream was really cool. And then I started seeing ads and I realized that I hadn't read the EULA and that they could port ads directly into my sensorium, and there was nothing I could do, and I couldn't make it stop. It was not a very fun dream after that.
Is that an episode of Black Mirror?
It probably is now, but that was
no. In the real world, there are cybernetic eyes that let people who are blind see. There is a company that produced these eyes for several, like hundreds of people.
Oh, no.
The company went under. The eyes are not replaceable.
They don't show ads, I hope.
They don't show ads, no, but like all these people who are having technical problems with the eyes.
The company has business support for their implant eyes.
That said that, they would fix them for people, or they can do something for people. that company's gone under. No one's producing any model like that. So, and they're implanted in their head.
Yeah. God damn. That's really.
And I mean, you can take them out again. You get surgery, you take them out, but it's like,
good Lord. Good Lord.
Yeah, that's the real fear for augmentation.
But that's
lack of
I go to a
support.
computer today and I can't run half the programs I use.
Yeah, but that's just like one little thing, like for one thing that exists right now,
Yeah.
you know. And again, like, you know, when I was a kid, when I was like 20 years old, I was like, oh, the implants are going to be so fucking cool. It's going to be so cool to have cyberware and implants and stuff. Now I'm like,
Jesus.
I think I'll pass.
Yeah, no.
I work in information security. No.
I don't like getting surgery. Like,
The smartest
real?
piece of equipment in my house is a printer, and I
Now
have a
that I
hammer
s-
next to it in case it looks at me funny.
Yeah. Like, let's be real. Now that I've had to have surgery a few times in my life.
Yeah, it
No
sucks.
thanks. I'm not gonna get surgery just for fun.
On my
I don't
face.
I don't know how people get plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery. It's like you willingly let people cut you up with knives for fun, just to look better. Like I had to get some people to cut me up with knives to like try and save my
Live.
life,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too comfortable with that, but I did it. I'm not gonna do it for any other reason than that, though. You know.
I feel like when people think about, well, first of all, eyeball surgery is insane. But when people think about any kind of elective surgery, or when people are, my first thought is like, you must not be thinking about what the recovery is going to be like
I guess so.
from surgery.
Yes.
Like, goddamn.
Different people. I mean, you know, everybody. Speaking of consciousness again, everybody experiences pain and
Yep.
recovery and stuff in different ways. You know, different people have different pain.
I certainly
tolerances,
experienced
different tolerances.
recovery differently in my 20s.
Yeah, and say that again.
Whew.
They beat the aliens at the end. I mean, Echopraxia turns around and says, "Guess what? No, they didn't."
Yeah, I was going to
Okay.
say, well, I mean, from just Blindsight, my takeaway was that it's kind of a 50-50 whether that's even Siri in the pod
Right.
that's going back towards Earth.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it is.
All right.
Like,
I mean, the local battle of Theseus versus
they
Rorschach.
blew up the.
They blew up the Theseus and it blew up Rorschach.
Yeah.
So therefore, you can count as a human win because Rorschach was a lot bigger and tougher than Theseus. Presumably a greater investment of resources. Whatever. But yes.
It's a panspermia type thing. In
Yeah.
which case, they
Well,
don't give a shit.
And again, in Echopraxia, it doesn't even matter. Siri Keaton is not Siri Keaton, and it's the Trojan horse because a different Trojan horse gets to Earth from a different
Right.
route and kills everyone anyway. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Cool. I can't wait to read it.
I actually don't really like Echopraxia very much.
Oh,
I like
yeah?
the ideas in it. The main character is even more of a piece of shit than Siri Keaton.
Oh, wow.
Like Siri Keaton is
Siri Keaton is. He's. You know what?
Siri
I like
Keaton is-
Siri Keaton.
I
I like him.
No. Here's the thing about Siri Keaton is you kind of like him because he's telling you the story. He's kind of a shithead. He's manipulative, partly because, and you can justify. You can justify.
He
by
is what he
saying-
is.
You can justify by saying he's so manipulative because he uses that as a survival tool. He needs to do that because he doesn't process emotions properly. But he's not a robot. He did, and he is conscious and he does have emotions and feelings. He just doesn't. And I think that's kind of what all of the stories about him and his relationship with Chelsea have to do with the whole rest of the book, is that despite all his claiming to want to be an objective observer and a sort of like passive, unbiased translator of information and data, he's very strongly biased. He's got his own very strong biases and he's got his own very strong feelings. And part of his problem is that he doesn't understand his own feelings and he doesn't understand his own emotions. And he justifies that by saying, well, I'm just a robot. I don't have real emotions because half of my brain was cut away when I was a kid. Like, that's like his whole relationship with Chelsea, and then later on getting the shit beat out of him by Juka Sarasi, and his reaction to that, and then what goes on afterwards, just proves that he is, in
He has
fact,
a lot of feelings.
that he has a lot of feelings, and that he has, he's not a robot anymore. And yeah, something in him changed, definitely, like when he had that surgery. But he had to reinvent himself as a new person.
It's not so much the existence of his feelings as his relationship to his and others' feelings.
Yes. And I think
damaged.
And there's kind of some tragedy there because he decided to reinvent himself as kind of an asshole.
Yeah. Some people do.
Yeah, it's like he basically is putting himself in the position of saying, I see the game that you're all playing. I'm above it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not participating in the game. But the problem is, if you're going to be involved in a system with other human beings, you are playing the game. You don't opt out. Well, there's opting out, and there's only one way to do it, and you don't come back.
Right. Yeah, and to be fair, it's to look at it from the other side too. The way he describes his relationship with his parents is extremely screwed up.
Yep.
His dad is not a normal dude. And his
mom is not okay.
His mom is not okay emotionally. And again, I think I said before that like the description that we have of her is very biased, and we should kind of avoid taking it at face value. But at the same time, there's probably something to it.
Right. Well, if the things that he remembers about certain events can be taken, like if we strip away what her motivation from them was, they're still pretty ugly.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that.
Yeah, but he is much more likable and affable in the way he tells the story than the character in Echopraxia, which was what you were, where you were going, I think.
Oh yeah, the character in Echopraxia is like,
he's hard to be around.
Yeah, this guy fucking sucks. This guy is.
Well, he's just the problem. It's really hard to write a coward, in a way that is likable. And I'm not talking, cowardice. I don't mean like being afraid, because everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid all the time. That's not what I'm describing as cowardice. I mean, he's like sort of an unrepentant, like craven. He doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not just that he is cowardly. That is his defining personality trait. Is that he runs away from every problem that he faces. Without
also fail. All problems that occur in his universe the way that he seems to self-narrate them are that they are imposed upon him, and that he's like helpless in the face of all of these problems that are being done to him.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's really not.
He's a hapless.
He is an ant among gods, but
he's such a hapless dweeb. And he's so unrepentant about being such a hapless dweeb, and he uses it as an excuse to be a piece of shit. He's like, he's like, all these terrible things that have happened because of me is only because I'm a hapless dweeb. It's not because I'm a coward. Person. I'm not actually a bad person.
Like, if you want to look at how to write someone who is scared all the time and says they're a coward and is resonant, look at Samwell Tarly from Game of Thrones, right? Who is saying he's chicken and running away all the time, but is actually a good dude.
Okay, yeah.
You can't do that character. Sam Tarly's great.
Do you think he wrote the Game of Thrones?
The Throne of Gaming? No.
You don't think Sam Tarly writes the?
Oh, did Samwell Tarly write? I thought you meant did. Yeah, I was conflating the two books there.
Wait, what's the other book?
The one the Echopraxia.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Did Peter Watts write Game of Thrones?
I'm not even sure if this is a real theory or if it only has something to do with like the intro to the TV show or something. But I heard that Samwell Tarly writes down all those stories, and he's the narrator, and the tome is called A Song of Ice and Fire. That's passed down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It honestly might only be because of hints in the intro.
Literary tradition of people named Sam writing down long adventures. or at least that other one from Lord of the Rings.
That one other Sam. There's at least another.
Yeah.
There's at least
one.
There's at least one other important Sam
Yeah.
that we'll talk about eventually.
So yeah, one other important Sam sidekick.
I was, of course, talking about Sam Porter Bridges.
Scramblers are
Okay, yeah.
the Scramblers are like, I mean, what a terrifying antagonist.
Yeah.
Just it doesn't hate you. It's not programmed to want to take you out. It's not a monster like the Terminator. It's not, it's just, it's not even, it's not indifferent, but it's not indifferent to you either. And
Yeah,
you're basically like,
It wants to know about you. It
wants to know about you so that it can destroy you. And
Hey.
you're the best mind you could bring to bear.
Bad TV. Stop broadcasting this bad TV at
I
us.
mean, I
Turn
feel
it
the same
fuck
way.
off.
Please stop broadcasting all of the bad TV.
Someone fly over to that planet and shut it the fuck off.
Yeah, that one's on the fritz. Turn it off.
Someone get these guys to shut the fuck up.
And
That is what killed humanity. We couldn't shut the fuck up.
seems likely.
We said on a we say
Yeah,
and
we
agree
say.
on a podcast.
Yeah, we're talking for the last hours.
And talking.
But also the fact that like the smartest human being is like the mental equivalent of wet tissue paper in front of a scrambler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which may or may not even be a whole entity or being or part of a network, and also they can adapt to they can read your sensory profile of what you're looking at and sensing, and they can hide in the blind spots of your vision.
Every cell of their body
Yeah.
is a computational substrate. They don't have brains.
They are
don't need
brains.
because all their parts are brains, as well as doing all the other stuff.
Astronaut pointing at astronaut. It always was.
Yep.
Always has been.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's Blind Sight by Peter Watts, and I give it a 5 out of 5. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
I've never had a
it's one of my
rating system
favorites.
before. It's great. It's all the ratings, whatever my rating system
It's
is.
8 tentacles out of 8.
It's 8 out of 8. Yeah, it's a tour de force.
Yeah, it will depress you. It
Yeah,
will make you think, what is it good for?
It's a doomer book for
what
doomers.
What is the whole point? But at the same time, it brings up some things we're thinking about.
Who needs a mind when a mind can be broken?
R.I.P. Tina.
Yeah. Thank you both so much, and let's do it again. We'll see what other kinds. Yeah, let's talk about Kindred the Embrace, but also I don't mean to wrap it up before getting final thoughts. So I do want to say thank you both, and make sure that I say it. But yeah, anything else?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for
Awesome.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Thank you for both recommending this and mentioning this book to me, because good recommendation.
Yeah, I wish I remember who recommended it to me first.
2006.
I wish I did.
You to me to everyone I knew, basically.
Yeah,
Proselytizing the Church of Blindsight.
yeah. Maybe I found it. I don't know. Maybe it was recommended to me by a person, but maybe it was just something I picked up off Valve or saw a review of on IO9 or something. I don't know.
Okay, so that's Blind Sight by Peter Watts. I was like, wow, okay, what are we talking about? What have I just been listening to for 2 or 3 hours? Okay, yeah, Blind Sight, Peter Watts, great, very good book, recommended. Spaceship, science fiction, vampire book, but you know all that now because you listened to us talk about it for a couple hours. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to Maybe We'll Talk. I've been having a summer. It's been great. I've been having a lot of fun. It was awesome talking about this. I look forward to talking to Locke and Saint again and everyone else that I've been talking to. working on The Great Hunt. Basically going to be done with that. I think we'll have probably 2 more episodes about that. One will be sort of the penultimate, and then one will be the full coverage of the whole book, kind of like, yeah, that's sort of how we did the last one. So if we cover a book in parts, I don't know, who cares? Why do I talk about my format? I talked about my schedule, and then did I talk about audio issues for a little while, and now the format. These are all like very boring things that I love to go on and on about. I feel like, I guess it's sort of part of, I guess it's just things I think about, and so then as I begin kind of explaining what's coming up next, my process sometimes emerges if I've been, smoking marijuana, whatever, who cares? Shut up. So, yeah, speaking of what's coming up, the next talk that we have, that we're going to have, that will be up within a few days, that I've already had, is with my friend Shell, also known on the internet as Cal Gala, who I used to play Link to the Past with a long time ago, and I've known on the internet for several years. We think this is the first time we've talked. We weren't quite sure. But yeah, she likes The Legend of Zelda a lot, it turns out, and she talked to me about it a lot. So the next episode of this is going to be her talking about Legend of Zelda a lot. I've had no internet this weekend. Yeah, this weekend is real out of sorts. I was like, I was actually thinking to myself when I was babbling about all my bullshit, did something kind of knock me out of sorts? Because it's been a weird weekend and some other stuff has been going on, and I've been, all good stuff really, juggling various stupid projects. But, so what was I saying? Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom. And very soon I will be viewing A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 and also some Kindred and the Embraced. So we'll see, who is around to join me for those. And if you want to be someone who might join me for one of those viewings or to talk about it, you can come and say hi to me and the whole gang that makes this podcast on our Discord, which is called Easy Town. And the link to it is, of course, gibberish, which, Discord invites are like. I don't know if you know what Discord is like, but I'm not here to explain Discord to you. Discord is a thing on the internet, and you can get a link to my Discord server by visiting my website, which is koyadk.tv. That is CUYADK.tv. And you can get a link to my Discord. You can get a link to my Etsy shop. I make soap, by the way. Soap is the backbone of civilization, which probably is a result of consciousness, and may be some percentage of it is the result of play, which we're going to talk about when we talk about Sam Porter Bridges. You can buy soap from me on Etsy. You get a link to that from the same place you got the link to Discord, koyadk.tv. Also I got Patreon, Twitch. You can like all this shit. You can look at all my social things and give me various small amounts of dollars over all of them so I can continue to feed my cats. So really what I'm saying is it's great being here. Thank you so much. And more of these are coming soon. Thanks.
Когда умирает он крепко, черст. Когда дерево растет, оно нежно и гибко. А когда оно сухо и жестко,
Hi, and welcome back to Maybe We'll Talk, a podcast where I talk to people on the phone. Today, we're going to talk about The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, the most recent release in a gigantic series of video games that you are almost definitely already aware of. You know what The Legend of Zelda is. It's gigantic. I don't even know how many mainline entries there are, or how many... I don't know if it's even possible to know how many orbiting entries might be connected to The Legend of Zelda. It's a gigantic franchise. You know what it is. It's like, it's the goddamn Legend of Zelda by Nintendo. I'm talking to Cal Gala, who, as I mentioned last time, we used to play Link to the Past randomizer online together, and that's sort of, through Twitch and whatever is how we known each other, and we have known each other for a little while, and yeah, she had a lot of things to say about Tears of the Kingdom, and here they are. All right, so what's up, Cal Gala? Would you like me to call you Cal Gala or Shell?
You can call me Shell.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Shell. I am doing okay. It's a great day. How are you doing?
It's very hot here and humid.
Yeah.
Even though...
That's a lot for me.
Yeah. We had like a thunderstorm yesterday. So this morning, for about 5 minutes, it was kind of cool and not too humid. And now it's back.
Oh, for 5 minutes. That's not even a break.
It's been it's July. I have a lot of feelings about July. I've said a lot of things about how I feel about the weather in July.
Yeah.
What do you think? You like the summertime or winter is better?
I am miserable.
Oh.
Like, I think I used to appreciate summer more when I felt like we had like a clear division of all of the seasons. Like, I had my 2 months where I had to deal with summer, and then I had, a couple of months of like, getting cooler and whatever. Winter was like an actual thing where we had snow days growing up, and then spring wasn't awful, but now it's like you get a week of fall, you have 3 weeks of winter, and I don't know if you experience the same thing, but in the South, like we were struggling down here. And then it's just like 48 weeks of summer every year, and it seems like it gets worse every year, and it's kind of hard to, I remember liking summer because, you can go to the beach and family vacation or whatever, but like vacations don't exist as an adult like they did when I was younger either. So I don't know, the magic of summer and like being out of school doesn't really mean anything for me anymore. And that made me realize that was really the only reason I liked it to begin with, because I cannot stand the heat, cold weather forever.
Okay. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about as far as the way that the weather patterns have sort of changed. Because, I feel like, it's sort of blended together a little bit. And we definitely have nasty summers. And I think there's probably, at least to some extent, going on most places. But I definitely feel you with little tiny springs and autumns. It is still nice to get a little bit of a crisp autumn. And
At least I can kind of, at work, where I work at a craft store, and so we get all of our seasonal stuff in earlier than the season starts because people need the time to craft. And so right now we have a bunch of fall and Halloween stuff. Like we even have Thanksgiving stuff out right now. And it's super awesome because at least when I'm at work, I feel like I'm experiencing fall.
Yeah, right.
So that's really nice. And then like right before Halloween, we're going to start getting Christmas stuff in. So I don't know, maybe I just need like a personal fan and I can tailor my own body temperature to what season I would like for it to be.
Well, yeah. Ideally, that's what we would all like. I said something this week. I don't remember. Oh man, there was some prop or costume or something that I was like I need for some reason, and I said to someone like, "Is the Halloween store open? Can we go Halloween shopping?" And the guy was like, "It's July." And I was like, so no, they're not open yet? It seems like they should be, I think.
Yeah, we just there's a store because I work in like a big shopping area, and so in our plaza, like maybe 2 stores down, there used to be a Bed Bath and Beyond, and I don't know if the entire company filed for bankruptcy or if just that one location closed. But we lost our Bed Bath and Beyond, and it's still empty. And so I'm keeping like all of my fingers, toes, everything is crossed that we will get a Spirit Halloween.
Oh,
just
yes.
a couple stores down from where I work.
It's a good store to have as a neighbor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
This I don't know if this is a weird thing to ask. I'm sorry if it is, but have we spoken before?
I don't think that we have.
But are you not sure? Because I'm not positive.
Maybe when we like originally met,
Link
when
to the
we were
Past.
doing the Link to the Past races.
Right. It's possible that we may have been in a call together.
Maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, this might be the first time. So it's nice to talk to you.
Yeah. So I've known you for many years. It is nice to talk to you, first of all. Through Twitch and because of Link to the Past.
Yeah. Oh man, those were the days.
They kind of were.
I mean, these are still kind of the days, every day is a day, I suppose.
There are certain sets of days, and those certainly were days. Those were a specific
of all the
type
days,
of days.
Yeah, of all days, they were certainly them.
I have, mixed feelings of all the types of days that I've had, and collections of days. I have mixed feelings concerning the collection of Link to the Past days, just as I have mixed feelings of all my other collections of days, but they were good days.
Yeah.
Racing Link to the Past is a crazy thing to do.
It was really fun.
What do you think?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to ask you what your favorite Zelda game was, but if you hadn't thought about Link to the Past, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I was just going to say, with Zelda in general, I feel like I've always had mixed feelings. You play something up so much and you have all of these crazy expectations of how like the perfect game will go, especially when you're so obsessed with the franchise and the lore and whatever. But yeah, asking about my favorite Zelda game is definitely it's a good start into that, kind of on the same vein as what I was talking about. Honestly, like, it really ends up being whichever one I'm playing at the time. I think ultimately my favorite will always be A Link to the Past. I just think that that's like the perfect idea. It was more than Zelda 1, Zelda 3. It was more than Zelda 1, but it was still so Zelda 1. And I think that ultimately that was like perfection for me. And then, of course, with A Link to the Past being like a reimagining, remastering kind of A Link to the Past. And A Link Between Worlds is easily one of my favorite, newer entries into the Zelda franchise. Right now, I'm playing Oracle of Seasons, because the Oracle of Seasons and Ages just dropped on the Nintendo Switch Online software.
Right, I gotta get back on it.
Oh my God, I forgot how much I love these games, but this is the first time that I've heard people say, oh, well, you should have gotten it on 3DS, but like even still, that was a handheld. So experiencing Oracle of Seasons on my TV right now is blowing my freaking. Can I cuss? Can I say fucking?
You can say anything you want. You can say anything you want.
Awesome. Yeah, it's blowing my fucking mind. How awesome this is. Because I loved the Oracles and I've never beaten them. It's just so hard for my eyes. My vision is super bad and it seems like it gets worse every year. And so like every time I think of, bringing up the Oracles, just on my Game Boy, I'm like, oh God, this freaking sucks. I make it like 15 minutes. And, I picked it up last night, I worked all day yesterday. And so I get home and it was the first thing I did. And I was just like transported. And it is incredible because, you can also play the Midas Cap on the Game Boy Advance software. And those 3 games right there to me are like the unsung heroes of the Zelda franchise. No one really knew about them. But I just hold such like a high respect for them. They were the perfect level of like difficult and actually making you think about your surroundings.
Yep.
And how they change, you know, especially right now with the Rod of Seasons, thinking about, oh, well, I can't get here now, but what if I drain this water? What if I, you know, froze the water? What if I did this? And it's really fun to get back into it. I'm having a freaking blast. So yeah, to answer your question, A Link to the Past is always my favorite, but I think right now I like Oracle of Seasons more than anything.
Great. Okay, so you're correct about Link to the Past. I'm so happy for you having that experience with Oracle of Seasons, because I have the same. My vision is also shitty and going, and I cannot wait until someday when they finally put A Link Between Worlds on the goddamn Nintendo Switch, because
Oh my god.
that's like the one Zelda game I haven't played at all.
I'd go fucking feral, dude.
And I would also like, just for the record, Samus Returns to be on the Switch as well. If anyone from the Big N is listening, can you please put those games on the Switch so I can play them?
And I love this software, like all these software that's being introduced on the Switch, just because, like, you know, I was raised really, really poor, and I think that we were gifted my Super Nintendo when I was like 5. So this was 95, and
Okay.
it had Super Mario All Stars, Donkey Kong Country, and Super Mario World, and that was all I had until I turned 18. So for 13 years, that's all I played, and then I bought a 64. But like, I didn't have, you know, all of these childhood memories of all these different games. Like, I know I'm putting myself up on a cross here, but I've never played a Mega Man game. I've never played a Metroid game, you know, and so having access to this stuff now as an adult, is incredible, because I think that, you know, when I was younger, if I didn't immediately get something, I would just kind of like give up on it.
Yeah.
And now, you know, now being an adult and being like, well, I have the fucking internet. You know, I can just look up a walkthrough. If it's, you know, I want to beat the game, obviously, so I might as well just, I don't give a shit if I do it by 100% brain power, you know, and I don't think it matters any less if I do look up stuff. So having access to that stuff now, especially with not paying for each individual game, because I'm a collector and I do like to spend money on physical games to have and hold. So but it's kind of like no commitment, you know, re-experiencing what I would have liked my childhood to be.
Awesome. That's great that you get to do that. I have played about half of Oracle of Ages, I think, and not Seasons at all. So I think I need to get I've been meaning to, because I want to play Dark Souls with someone. So I got to get the Nintendo Online to do that, and also to play some of these again. And Minish Cap, yes, is incredible.
Gosh. It's such a good freaking game. Oh man, I truly feel for people, you know, and I'll never say, oh, someone thinks that they're a Zelda fan, because like, if you like Link, if you just like the character Link, if you like the character Zelda, fuck it, man, you're a Zelda fan. I'm not gatekeeping shit, you know.
For real.
But like, you know, so many people are like, okay, so Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, those like 6 or 7 like big mainstream games, and they think that Zelda doesn't follow a formula. But if you look at all of the games that happened in between, you can see exactly what has been going on the whole time. Because you have new systems with new capabilities, and you have to incorporate those into games. And with the handhelds, I think just like most basic Nintendo fans never really messed with the handhelds. So, and then had those awesome experiences of Link's Awakening and the Oracles and Minish Cap and stuff like that. They're definitely missing out.
And those, yeah, and those particular games all kind of so happen to be the real classic sort of top-down looking 2D 1993 ass kind of games.
Oh, absolutely.
Which Link to the Past is the absolute emperor of. It really, there's something perfect about that. And I mean, I've said this a lot while we were doing randomizers and playing that game over and over again, but like there is some like divide mathematics holding Link to the Past together. It's perfect.
Link to the Past, perfect game.
And that is correct. That's a fact. That could be scientifically proven. Absolutely perfect. So what did you think about Tears of the Kingdom?
So, like I said, I have mixed feelings after finishing any Zelda game, because I want to pick it apart. I loved it.
Good.
I think that it was exactly what we needed after Breath of the Wild. I think that a lot of people expected perfection, and then when the game wasn't perfect, because that's really just impossible to do. Someone's always going to have a problem with something, but I think that like if they hadn't had the most ridiculous expectations, a lot more people would have enjoyed Tears of the Kingdom. It was, I love that there was so much familiarity. And kind of for a silly reason, I am a giant baby, and I think that I've mentioned before that the Gloom hands shake my existence in a way that I have trouble explaining.
They're upsetting. They are very upsetting. Just
the depths in general is just so creepy, and I don't like the dark, and whatever. And so like I needed the familiarity of coming back to a world that I'd left. Because it was kind of, I think I maybe picked up Breath of the Wild a couple of times just to, do extra shit on my save file, but I still had not replayed Breath of the Wild from the beginning to the end. And for me, it was really like, I did wait 5 years, for the new adventure.
Yeah.
And so it was absolutely wild to me to like come back and just like have all of these people that, NPCs that recognize you, that felt huge to me. And I think that if we didn't have that, I would have I would have liked Tears of the Kingdom significantly less. I'm kind of bad about like the creepier games. I specifically mean, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. I played both of them for 15 minutes each, and I just wasn't vibing, and I really couldn't do it. I love both of those games for what they were, what they brought to the franchise. I've watched people play them, and that's fine because it's not me in that situation, because I get anxious and I start to, freeze up, and I don't like dying in video games. So if I know that that's going to happen often, I'm like, I don't want to play this game. And I had to push through with Tears of the Kingdom. Is this like a spoiler? This has to be a spoiler.
Absolutely. No, like full spoilers. Okay, cool. Anyone listening to this knows better. Yeah. Okay, great. Congratulations.
So, I have a friend that is speedrunning Tears of the Kingdom. I think he's got like a 44-minute. He's not the world record or anything, but he is working with Linkus to, kind of cut down on the time. And it's actually really cool, like watching my real life friend do this thing and like talk to people who I've watched on Twitch for years.
Oh, yeah.
And so he and I had been talking a lot about this game. And, I mentioned like, oh, the Gloom hands, like, absolutely fucked me up, whatever. Yep. Like I was able to teleport away, but it killed a horse and, whatever. And he was like, oh man, have you been to Korok Forest yet? And I was like, no, I've not been to Korok Forest. And he was like, no, you should definitely go. And I went, and it was like the despair and like the pit of my stomach was awful. It looks like Deku Tree is bleeding from his fucking eyes and mouth, and I was just like, I don't fucking like it here. And it's so Silent Hill vibes, like haha, LOL, anything dark and creepy is Silent Hill, but it was Silent Hill vibes in that you walked in and it's like foggy, and all of the Koroks, like you can interact with them, but they don't say anything. It's just the ... which I think is fucking worse than having, the not having the option to speak to them at all. Like fucking G's. But anyway, and so you like do the whole thing, and I went in there, and of course there's like the chasm, and so I was like, oh shit. Like Ryan was with me, and I was like, honey, I'm like, I just know there's going to be a fucking like gloom hands. His fucking indigestion is about to fuck me up. And he's like, no, just go in, honey. You got this. You got this. Like, I'm right here, blah, 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 whatever. And I jump in and it's like, I've got it for like a second. And then they grab you and then you're breaking away and you slow down in the gloom and you're trying to get away and they're faster than you and they're continuously grabbing you. And when you're grabbed, you can't do anything. And it was just like immediate panic attack. Like it ruined my night. The next day at work, I was a fucking mess. It was so fucking silly. And so I have this group chat with a bunch of my friends and we were like, I went in there and I was like, does the end of the game require me to fight the gloom hands? Like, not can I get away from them, like they're around and they will spawn, but I can get around them by like
not a required
using a
gloom
bunch
hand
of
fight.
Stamina food and climbing up against the ceiling, or is it required like in Korok Forest? And they were like, oh yeah, it's required. You have to fight gloom hands. And I was like, well then good. I'm not going to beat the game. Like, and I'm fine with that,
Okay,
like,
as long as you
I'll get right up. I'll get right up to that point, and then that's it. I don't need to beat the game in order to feel like I experienced Tears of the Kingdom. And so,
we've all done that.
And it's so funny because like in order to do the Korok Forest thing, I like asked Ryan, I was like, will you please just beat these gloom hands for me? This man has never played a Zelda game in his life.
And those hands are nasty.
It's hard. I was like, I can't fucking do it. But he plays Souls, so he's played all of them. And so I was like, if anybody can beat these gloom hands, it'll be you. And so, and he was like, okay, what does what? And I'm like, this is your sword. This is your, arrows. This is how you fuse. Like just a quick rundown of like the, battle mechanics. And he did it first try. And I was just like, I'm going to sell my collection. But then he was, I was like, will you please just let me watch you beat my game? And then he was like, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay, I get it, whatever. And he was like, I'm right here. We'll just go through it. And, if you get to that point and you really can't beat it, then that's fine. We can handle it. But, and of course, this was at the time I still had V1, V1.1. And,
the
Duke glitch. and so I was like just duping bombs and I don't know, just I guess like preparing myself, making sure to like max out all of my armor and all of that and whatever. And so he's like, we need to plan a day to do this because your Switch has been running nonstop for 2 months. and so I went to go do like the Ganondorf fight, and like you can totally, I mean, there's a ledge and you can get the gloom hands to spawn and then just bomb the shit out of them from the ledge and then kill Phantom Ganon, which like, I don't give a shit about Phantom Ganon, whatever, bring it.
So there is required. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if there is actually required gloom hands on the way down there, or because I kind of don't remember.
It's right before you walk into like the final arena with Ganondorf.
There's a
like
phantom,
a ledge, and then it's like a big room.
Okay.
And there's a gloom spawn down there.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, I know. Yep.
Yeah, so I did end up being able to just like cheese them, but then also like I was already in the mindset of cheesing the gloom hands with a bunch of bomb arrows because I seriously had like 600 bombs, and so I cheesed the gloom hands, and then I get into the Ganondorf fight, and like everyone was like, you're gonna need to learn how to like flurry rush, you're gonna need to learn how to parry. And so what I did was I trained by going around to all of the Colosseums in the depths and killing Lynels, and and so I got really good at flurry rushing. But Ganon's fight pattern was so fucked, and you already have to be so consistent with your timing on the flurry rush that I was getting fucking wrecked. So I was just hitting it with bomb arrows to the fucking face the entire battle and won. And I was like, that's bullshit. I had put so many hours into preparing for this battle just for me to use like 30 bombs and the game is done. I mean, of course you still have the demon dragon, but like we already knew from the great beast Ganon from Breath of the Wild that those are the easiest battles in the fucking game. And I think that it's just more for like cinematic effect to fight this huge fucking thing, but it be so, nerfed that you feel, and it doesn't even feel really like the battle. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of does. It feels more like the battle was nerfed than that you were so overpowered from your adventure that when you get there, it's nothing.
Nintendo does it a lot.
A better job of translating that.
It feels like, what it really feels like is like a final phase of a boss fight. It definitely doesn't feel like its own fight. It feels like you're just finishing up at this point, and this is just the really dramatic looking spectacle part of the fight.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it didn't help because, like I said, Ryan was sitting here with me the whole time, but it didn't help that like during the dragon fight, he's like, "Oh, I wonder if Ganon and Zelda as dragons are gonna fuck in the sky," and I'm like, "You're ruining this for me right now." He's like, "Just do some nasty shit," and I'm like, "Honey, will you please stop?" It's actually very serious. It's like super climactic. But it was, honestly, I definitely appreciated the dragon fight more than like the pig beast of Breath of the Wild.
Sure. Yeah, looks better.
Because it was just like, this pig isn't going to do shit to you. It's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But like, you also have no reason to like ever be
in danger.
The pig.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so like knowing that like, oh, everything but these like little sections, of course, in true Zelda fashion, it's like brightly lit. Why would you go any other part on the dragon? But
I honestly barely did it. I honestly barely squeezed it out. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you're good.
No, I was just saying that I barely actually got it done. I was so out of stuff and hurt by the dragon that I was a little worried. Like, I knew I was safe because of previous experiences. I was like, all right, this is gonna be fine. But I barely scraped through. But I did it.
Yeah. It was definitely, it was super fun. I was so overpowered because, after fighting all of those Lynels and then fusing them to all of my weapons, and still having, like I said, I duped 600 bomb arrows or bombs and had 570 left at the end of it. So I felt way more confident in my ability. And I'm pretty sure at like one point, during the Ganon fight, I was like, or the Ganondorf fight, I'm sorry. I was like, I think the Master Sword is low on energy. I'm just going to go ahead and waste it so that it, regenerates or whatever. Because I know you kind of need it for that. So need it for the final.